Читаю нашого волі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою всі скидання, воно вібрало у собі. Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 281 of the news and another day of reporting on Ukraine.
And of course, we're going to be reporting the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine here on day 281. And we have some pretty interesting news. We're actually going to be hopping over to the Deep State UA map immediately because we have been noticing that the Russians have made ground in the Bakhmut area. If we take a look over the past 24 hours, we can see that the Russians have advanced in the Avdiivka area and also north near the town of Bakhmut itself. It also appears that they're moving up onto the chicken tender, and they may be getting an overlook into the town itself, which will provide them a second major height, and also another way to fire on Ukrainian forces inside Bakhmut town and also on the surrounding ridges. Further south in the Avdiivka area, they've also moved past the entirety of the reservoirs here in this area, and it looks like they've moved up onto the first ridge. Of course, they still have other ridges and land features to deal with in this area that the Ukrainians can defend themselves from, but even still, we've also seen that they've moved forward into the town, and let me see here, someone actually told me I could change this into English, so let me see if I can do that real quick. No, not that. That's a heat map, so we don't want that. We want English. Where in the world can we get that? So let's see here. I read it earlier, and for some reason I can't remember it, so unfortunately I won't be able to get the English name, but it's Kurdomivka, I believe. And if we go to Kurdomivka, we can actually see a couple of things ended up being accurate. One second, for some reason this is taking a second to load, so let me move it down to Bakhmut and then down to Kurdomivka, where we can see that there's a decent amount of what appears to be some kind of salt flats on the village itself, and it appears that the Russians have actually been able to push through those salt flats and all the way into the railroad tracks in the center of town. These railroad tracks are a bit of a tall berm. It's actually elevated around the rest of the village, which does allow the Ukrainians in a, I guess you could say, in a defensive line, and it also allows the Russians a defensive line as well. We do not know what kind of casualties the Russians took crossing the salt flats. It's largely assumed that these are perfectly flat, and so the Ukrainians probably would have been able to inflict heavy casualties on the Russians in this area. And another interesting note is that we have not seen the Russians push forward north on the railroad the railroad tracks to the west near the canal and into the town, because apparently that area must be too narrow for any Russian force to move through, because it would pretty much turn into a slaughterhouse. It's all starting to look a little bit, I guess you could say, questionable, but still not enough for immediate concern at this moment. We are seeing, though, that the Russians are starting to make ground, and we're largely attributing this to the massive horde that they have fighting the Ukrainian forces in this area. From what we know, the Russians have now also been reinforced, not just with their original 12 BTGs that they started off the Second Battle of Bakhmut with, but apparently forces from the south in the Kherson area have finally moved up into this area of the Donetsk region and are now reinforcing these units as well. We have absolutely no idea how many BTGs are now supporting the ones in Bakhmut, but we're getting a pretty good idea that this force must be over 10,000 strong, and they're pushing on the Ukrainian defenders, which we don't have an exact number count for, but it is certainly around 8,000 or less. And so it is seeming that the Russians are making this ground only because the Ukrainian defenders are being considerably outnumbered at this point, and because of that, they're running into difficulties on the flanks. It appears also that the Russians are going for the idea that we originally saw, and I originally stated, when the Second Battle of Bakhmut began. It looks like they're going for Chasiv Yar behind Bakhmut, and they're also going towards Krasna Gora, although I was incorrect. I did assume that they would push through Soledar first and then down towards Krasna Gora, but they're actually going for Krasna Gora on the major highway that's directly north of Bakhmut. Either way...
Also, real quick, Enforcer, I'm seeing a ton of people say click on the Ukraine flag in the top right corner to change the language. That was, I think, the left corner.
Alright, so top right corner, and... let's see, did that fix it? It did, actually. So now we've got them in
Paul.
English. So thank you so much, Paul. That was actually a really good suggestion right there. But once again, this is starting to look pretty severe. In some ways, not so much severe in others. One thing that is certainly severe is the horde of forces that the Russians have put forward in this area, and the fact that they are starting to make a little bit of ground. They are also pushing, like in the predictable, I guess you could say, way towards the flanks of Bakhmut, not directly through it. We've seen that over the entirety of this war, neither side, and there's been a couple of instances where this is not the case, like the siege of Mariupol, don't directly attack cities. They try and move around them towards their flanks to threaten the forces inside with encirclement and force them to retreat, where they really take the town without having to fire a single shot inside of it to push the other one out. And that's what we're seeing right here. So hopefully the Ukrainians are able to defend these flanks a little bit better than they have been, or hopefully they'll rush reinforcements in, so that way they can bridge the gaps if there are any, or at least bolster their defending forces, so that way they're on par. But it is starting to look a little bit interesting. If the Russians do take Bakhmut, it will help them in a small way. Bakhmut can be used as a supply hub. It also, I believe, has a railroad connection, if we go up to Bakhmut itself. And we can see that that railroad connection actually goes straight down to Kurdyumivka. And so as long as the Ukrainians held on to Kurdyumivka, the Russians could not connect this rail line with Orlivka, or another town inside of controlled territory, where they could supply forces from here. But if they take Kurdyumivka and Bakhmut as well, there will be a direct rail line and rail hub, now within miles of what would be the front line at that point, which would help out Russian forces a pretty decent deal in that area, considering that the truck supply line routes would be shorter, and they also would have taken all of the heights surrounding Bakhmut, and they would now be fighting for the ridges beyond the town, just further west. With all that in mind, hopefully, and of course what we've seen the first time, is that the Russians during the first Battle of Bakhmut committed a massive amount of forces then, and ended up at the end of the battle with 8,000 dead, or probably around 12 to 16,000 wounded, and they gained about a mile's worth of ground towards Bakhmut. I believe in the end they started at Zaitsevo, this Zaitsevo, east of Bakhmut, and ended up towards the area of Ivanrad. And then they stopped there because, 8,000 casualties were taken, the supply lines were falling apart, and they had to regroup. So it's looking, once again, and I've said this about 4 times, it's looking like the Ukrainians can rebound. It's just that they have to whittle down the Russian attacking forces, and because of that, we're probably going to see that they will be taking ground for a little while. Or, the alternative, the one that is unlikely although possible, is that the Russians are throwing so much of their weight directly at the Ukrainian defenders on the flanks of the Bakhmut front that they will be able to push through and get to Krasna Ora and also Chasiv Yar and cut the Ukrainians in Bakhmut off, forcing them to retreat from the town and taking it. I'm considering that one to be highly unlikely. If I had to put it in a percentage, there's about a 25% chance of that happening and a 75% chance that the Ukrainians will lose a small amount of ground near Bakhmut, but inflict heavy casualties and end up in a victory. And so with that, we're now going to be moving from the frontline analysis and into the actual video clips that we've gotten in the Bakhmut area, where we can see near Berestove that some Ukrainian troops were moving forward. And here's the clip. We can see them moving forward behind their Dutch-provided YMPs 6.5s, I believe, 165s. Quite a decent little push, of course through an open field. Most areas in Ukraine are almost perfectly flat, so it's almost impossible to push through anywhere that I guess you could say that would be suitable. It's usually just through the open ground like here. We now see this BMP-3. It looks like a BMP-3 traveling through the open field along with the YMPs. And with that, that's the end of the video, but once again, a pretty interesting look at Ukrainian forces in the area, and hopefully, whatever kind of offensive action they're taking, which we don't really know, it will be successful. Moving on into the next clip of news in the Bakhmut area, we've also seen south of Soledar and near Bakhmutske, a convoy of Kirpis. In case of y'all didn't know, we actually uploaded a Ukraine war short video summary today on this channel, and so if you haven't checked it out, make sure to check it out. We went into this video and another video of a shoulder, pretty much a tripod mounted javelin, which was really weird looking, but anyways, when you see this civilian car driving past these Kirpis, of course it's being used by the military, and from what we know, there are more Kirpis in this video than there were in the entirety of I guess you could say, all of the publicly provided information as to how many Kirpis the Turks have sent. So it looks like the Turks have actually sent additional Kirpis that we never got to hear about publicly. Also, they still look pretty cool. I like the Kirpi. And we see even more Kirpis back there. unbelievable. I mean, there's a load of Kirpies here, and of course, armored cars like these that are mine resistant are incredibly important in modern warfare and helps to keep the infantry alive a lot longer. And so it's good to know that the Turks have provided such a massive number of these things, and hopefully the Ukrainians will be putting them into good effect, and if they ever do get hit by anything, the crew survives. But that is the entire goal of the armored car. It's not to run over an explosive or get hit by something and keep running. It's to be hit by something, knocked out, but everyone inside is perfectly fine and alive. With that, we're now going to be moving into the next bit of news from the Bakhmut area, further back, where we can see the Ukrainian soldier committed an act of kindness in the town. He saw that an old lady who had pretty much remained in the town, although it's been heavily bombarded and practically destroyed by the Russians, was short on, I guess you could say, supplies, food, and such things. And so he actually went and got her food and brought it to her. And so with that, here's the video. And I gotta mute it, sadly, because of copyrighted music, but you can see him walking into her house. And you see her coming out the door. And she's more than happy to take the food. She's like, come on in. And that voice crack was horrendous. And you see that the house has actually taken some damage so far. It's not in great shape. There's leaks in the roof, water on the floor. Surprisingly enough, it actually takes the Russians bombarding a house in Ukraine to make that house look like an average house in rural Russia, which is really interesting, and I think that says a lot about how bad off the Russians really are, because this looks a lot like that video, if y'all were here for it, from, I believe, 1420, where he went around a Russian town in the middle of the east, and it was terrible, and this house looks a lot like that, but it's been damaged moderately by artillery fire. And so with that, it's still moving on from that, it's very nice to see that this soldier has gone out of his way to take care of a Ukrainian citizen, and it's good to know that they all take care of each other. Of course, that is what the war is being fought for, is for people like these that are now being put under direct artillery fire inside of their houses on the front lines, because the Russians are trying to push some meaningless objective without really any goal in mind anymore. They're just trying to come out with something. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in Bakhmut, and we're going to now be moving on into Bakhmut itself, where we can see some Ukrainian forces in the town of Bakhmut. Once again, I have to mute this one. I know that this one has copyrighted music, but it's a pretty cool video of a Ukrainian T-64BV moving down the road in Bakhmut.
Wow, what a nice sight.
Yeah, pretty nice.
What is that contraption on the front of it?
It's a plow.
Oh. This guy's got the best look on his face while he's recording that tank too. He's looking all sly.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so with that, that's the end of that video, and we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of news from the front line itself, where we can see some Russians being shelled. And I think we've reconnected. Hopefully.
All right, I think we might be back.
And I think we are. So here's the video of Russians being shelled by artillery in the distance, with a Ukrainian observer somewhere in the town on a ridge line overlooking Bakhmut, probably looking out towards the chicken tender. We don't really know for sure, but here's the video. We see the artillery coming down out there.
Ти можеш зараз заїбаш наші.
3, 4.
It's heavily concentrated and is very hard to make out due to the graphic quality, but it looks like that is a ridge line out there in the distance. We do know that the Russians are on two separate ridge lines, one to the southeast of the town and one to the northeast of the town. The one to the northeast is called the chicken tender. The one to the southeast is less creatively called the hill. So it looks like we can't really tell which ridge line this is.
Зараз.
But I believe that may be the ridge to the southeast. With that, that's the end of the video, and it's pretty interesting to see that we're able to observe this from a Ukrainian height, which also shows you what the battlefield really looks like. Down there, right where my mouse cursor is circling, is the town of Bakhmut itself. And so you can pretty much see that this is probably going to be one of the most difficult battlefields to fight for, because while the Russians right now are on the two ridges to the northeast and the south, while currently fighting their way up the chicken tender, once they take the chicken tender, if they do, which I suppose that they will, considering that the Ukrainians are being pushed back at a very slow rate right now, they will be able to fire into the town of Bakhmut. But once they start to move into the town of Bakhmut, the Ukrainians on the ridges on the other side will start firing in. It's practically a large fishbowl, or just a normal bowl, with both sides looking downwards into the middle of the bowl and firing at each other if they're inside of it. And so this battle is probably going to be one of the most horrendous we've ever seen on casualties for both sides, just because the terrain and where Bakhmut is situated as a town is incredibly difficult. It's probably going to be a very pitch-tough battle, and we'll probably, I've got to be honest with y'all, we will probably see that the Russians, looking back at the Deep State UA map, will make it down the chicken tender and start fighting in the town directly, and also move off the hill from the southeast and start fighting in the town directly. But the Ukrainians on the ridgelines to the west of the city will then begin to fire down into the town at the Russians, and then they'll start to take on very heavy casualties and probably have to pull back onto the hills to the east. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of news from the Bakhmut area, where we can see the Russians being hit in the town. I'm sorry, correction. We can actually see the Russians being hit on the outskirts of the town on one of the roads leading out of the city. And we got to mute that for copyright reasons. I'm assuming that that's copyrighted, although it sounded like a duck whistle. And we can see the artillery come right in on top of them, and it looks like the squad was taken out. We see more artillery coming down on what appears to be a small Russian outpost.
Was that Ghostbuster sounds, by the way? I see it. Everybody saying that in the chat.
I'm not really sure, because I never watched Ghostbusters, but we can see the Russians now running out of the bunker? I don't even know what that is, but it has like a rectangular perimeter around it. And now they've decided to group up in the open. Now, we all know what happens when Russians group up in the open. Bad things. And now that the video's been slowed down, more artillery's hitting onto the bunker. The Russians are now outside, completely without the protection of the bunker, although it looks like the bunker just caved in. And now they're beginning their run out of the outpost. More Russians are crawling out of the bunker. This is a clown car. It's like half a company. You see them all kind of scattering like ants across the field.
There's no logic to where they're going or anything. They're just running in circles.
Oh,
Man.
my lord. Oh. Shrapnel everywhere. Literally everywhere. Good lord. And now they're still running around. Some of them are now going to sleep. And then they got hit again. Looks like 3 of them got knocked out in that little artillery shell blast right there. And so with that, that's the end of the video. But once again, a pretty wild look at what's happening to the Russians out in the Bakhmut area. And it looks like it's not really doing all that well. With that, we're now going to be moving down to the further south area near Kurdyumivka, where we saw a 4 out of score as some Ukrainian artillery began to fire at the Russians in the Bakhmut area. And we can actually see that they have a panel of judges over here judging the accuracy of the artillery fire. So with that, I'm going to have to mute it. But we can see the artillery getting ready to fire over here, once again in a muddy pit. And also, those are, just to let y'all know, those are actually some incredibly old artillery pieces that you're looking at right here. Then we see that they're ready to fire. Pull the pin, it fires, and let's see what the judges give as a score. Alright, we got a 5, a 10, and a 4.
This is too much. The guy in the middle really thought it was good.
I mean, it's a solid shot, I gotta say. And so with that, that's the end of that video, and once again we can see that Ukrainian artillery is trying to give the Russians the best they can, and hopefully they're able to hit them heavily because the Russians are making a little bit of ground due to the massive hordes that they're now fielding around the town of Bakhmut. With that, we're now going to be moving out of the Bakhmut area for a second and actually out of Ukraine, because there's something interesting that I wanted to show y'all from Russia. Our favorite propagandist is back. He is back from the dead. He is on TV and he's saying silly stuff. He's even threatening his audience. So real quick, we're going to hop over to Twitter so that way we can check this out. And with that, here's the video. Also, I like the cast member that you can see standing over here in the corner when they pan the camera in. You can actually see the behind-the-scenes people.
That's the censor.
Полный контакт.
God damn.
Damn.
I like how he's so close to his microphone, you can hear every single rustle of his shirt and the fabric it's made of. Like that microphone is literally listening to the fabric of reality right there.
Доброе утро,
He's
дорогие
trying to
друзья.
get intimate with the audience.
Like, good lord, man, listen to that.
Что-то как-то холодновато мне
It's
было.
like he's doing it deliberately. Look at him. It's like he's like groping himself.
Доброе утро, дорогие друзья.
Like, what the hell's this? Like, he's just trying to make noise.
Как-то холодновато
You
мне
gotta turn
было.
this down
Сейчас
too. It's loud as hell.
начну постепенно снимать себя слоями. Я хотел своими глазами посмотреть все, что происходит, как происходит. Ну, для меня это было важно.
What happened to all this fervor he had at the beginning of the war? Now he's like a depressed, sad little guy.
Здесь, конечно, я вам скажу, сейчас там по колено. Именно поэтому, понимаешь, почему и с таким замедлением идут боевые действия, почему так тяжело и так сложно. А я еще хотел добраться вот до самой грязи-грязи. И поехал к ребятам уже, которых и видел, и знал, и пошел на полигон. На полигоне...
Stop sniffing
вот те,
into the
которые
mic,
еще как
man.
бы не...
Man, this...
That reminds me of another guy who used to sniff into the mic.
You know, like he really needs to back off the microphone because you can hear everything. You can even hear when his fingers move, the muscles snapping in his fingertips. Like, he needs to get away from the mic, but instead, he is literally, like, hugging the mic. He's on that thing.
Дошли до поля боя, многие одеты в том, что им поставили их губернии. Другой вопрос, что, конечно, был бы в идеале, если бы сразу поставляла армия, но мы же с вами реалисты, мы поэтому говорим о том, что есть, а не о том, что нам бы хотелось. Поэтому ясно, что армия пытается с максимальной скоростью.
The army is clearly working to fix the shortcomings. How come they haven't won then? It's been 9 months. Come on. I mean, you can't keep this bullcrap going forever. They're always working to fix the shortcomings on this show right here, the propaganda channel, or they have no shortcomings and they're perfect. They always flip-flop in between one or the other, and it's obvious that they're not. The only thing that's allowing them a small amount of success in the Bakhmut area right now is the total amount of forces that they have in that place.
Там исправить те недостатки, которые были. Но, тем не менее, вначале это, конечно, идет помощь от общества. И вот здесь какие-то вещи, вы знаете, меня прям до глубины души, вот прям меня это пробило насквозь. Вот сделайте стоп-кадр. Ну вот посмотрите, ну, ребят, ну что это такое, а? Ну, видите, у одного наколенников нет, а второй взял, приспособил пустые бутылки. Пластиковые бутылки, вот из пластика себе вырезал. Наколенники воюют,
Are
не
you
воюют.
kidding me? They're made out of plastic bags in water bottles. The guy made this crap out of a Dasani water bottle. That's where he's got his knee pads from.
В полигоне готовятся в них. Вот так в Волгоградской
Oh my
области
lord.
встретили героев, прибывших на побывку из зоны специальной военной операции. И когда в тот же самый момент я вижу, что вот у мальчишки, ну, мальчишки, это для меня не мальчишки, а так для взрослого мужика, на коленях вот эти пластиковые бутылки, я спрашиваю, откуда он? А мне ребята говорят, ну, они говорят, мы из Волгограда, вот нас так экипировали. Ну,
Is he
слушайте,
drunk?
ну, им просто...
I don't know. I mean, like, he's like almost not even here. You know, he's like in a different world or something. I have no idea if he's drunk or not, but the guy is just like, he's out of it or something, or he doesn't care. Also, just in case y'all are wondering where Volgograd is, I probably said this a decent amount on stream, where it is, but Volgograd is right here, and some of y'all may not actually know this, although I bet a lot of you do, that Volgograd was actually Stalingrad, and this is where the Battle of Stalingrad occurred, is right inside of this town. It was rebuilt entirely after the Battle of Stalingrad. Stalingrad was literally leveled. They rebuilt it in the late 40s, almost, not really exactly the way it was. They built it back in a modern form, and then it became a hero city, which is an honorary title that the Soviet Union gave out to cities that were very important during the Second World War. And then Stalin died, and then the town got renamed to Volgograd, which was its original name before Stalin came to power. So that's where Volgograd's from, and Volgograd is one of the largest cities inside of Russia. The largest ones are Moscow, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg, and Volgograd in that order. And considering that soldiers from Volgograd apparently don't even have supplies in their home cities' armories and bases to be properly equipped with simple crap like knee pads, tells you that they're really not going to be on the, I guess you could say, the up and up. In fact, it seems like, well, I would say they'd be on their knees, but I'm sure that would hurt for a while because they don't have knee pads, but they're not really being equipped quite well to be one of the largest and most important cities in Russia. So with that, we're going to let this continue.
Просто не дали. То есть это не значит, что им дали пластиковые бутылки. Им просто не дали ничего. Из защиты.
He's got the vodka hiccups and everything.
Как-то... Ну, совсем. Ребят, ну так нельзя. Ну нельзя так. Но это неправильно.
You see, because if our guys are going to be going to Ukraine and committing war crimes, they need to at least have proper knee pads. It's always interesting to me how this guy never... Well, I guess, you know, he would go to prison if he outright said this stuff. He can get away with this, but he can't say he's against the war, because if he said he's against the war, well, he goes to prison. But if he talks about their knee pads, well, he doesn't, because that's not really anti-war. That's just talking about something I guess you could kind of clearly see. But still, it's kind of interesting to me that even then, even though he would go to jail, that he's going to pick the quality of the knee pads to talk about instead of what they're actually doing in Ukraine. That's always interesting to me.
У меня нет ни малейших иллюзий. Конечно, обо мне заботятся. Конечно, Министерство обороны, которое очень помогает в организации этих поездок. И здесь спасибо Игорю Коношенко, генерал-лейтенанту. И с нами там постоянно находится там, Саша Рожков, полковник, который переживает и нервничает, и что, не дай бог, вот что-то случится, ну, что-то вот... Я их понимаю, потому что, конечно, я такая жирная цель, учитывая, что...
He's a fat target. In his defense, though, he's not a Mr. Lunchtime target. And also now he's saying that Zelensky hates him personally. I thought that... Why was he acting like a victim now? I thought he hated Zelensky personally. Now he's acting like it's not fair for him to be targeted back. Now, and I never even heard Zelensky say anything directly about this guy. I mean, you know, I think everyone in the world's kind of on the same page, including Zelensky, that this guy's just some deranged Russian on TV. And now he's going to sit here and make himself out to be, oh, I'm a target.
Меня ненавидит лично Зеленский, и лично Зеленский давал распоряжение о моей ликвидации, но...
So wait a minute, he gave a directive for his liquidation. Does that mean that Zelensky is going to give him all liquid assets and also a 401k? Because I would like to know where in the world Zelensky ever said he wanted this guy killed. Never heard that. I don't know where this guy is pulling this out from. Because I haven't actually heard Zelensky say that he's going to have any Russian politicians killed, but he has said that he wanted people held accountable and brought to courts of justice either in Ukraine or by NATO or The Hague or something similar.
Но мне там как-то гораздо комфортнее, чем здесь. Ну, просто реально, мне вот там... Я там понимаю все. Мне пишет человек. Может, некто Виктор Разумовский. Может, уже хватит выдавать ложь без мягкого знака за правду, не дурите людей. Здравые, понимающие люди же во все в это не верят. Знаете, Виктор, если ты в России, мы же тебя найдем. И мы же про тебя все выясним. И тебе-то покоя не будет.
What?
Dang, they
What
said that
the-
on live TV too. They didn't even try to hide that.
The guy literally said, the secret police are going to find you and we're going to torture the hell out of you. That's what he means by you won't know a moment's peace. Jesus, they're losing it over there. This guy has lost it. He's on TV, he's drunk or something, or he doesn't care anymore, and then he's going to start threatening viewers that are sending in truthful comments about what's going on in Russia, like, can you stop lying and just tell us the truth? And he's like, oh, the police are going to find you and we're going to torture the hell out of you. That is just insane. But that's enough of that. We can't stay in Russia for too long because that kind of stupidity is just, it's another level. You can't even go into it all too much. So with that, we're now going to be moving north of Kyiv because we've actually seen something really interesting today. The Ukrainians are training soldiers north of the city of Kyiv, not in any exact location, how to lay down mines, both anti-personnel and anti-tank mines, which is pretty interesting all around. But before we do, we have a poll that's been put up, and I want to see what the results are. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
Right. So on this poll, in your professional opinion, is our favorite Russian propagandist drunk? It looks like 77% said yes and 23% said no. Now, I got to say, the guy's like hiccuping, he's slurring his words, he's acting sort of uncouth a little bit. He's got to be drunk or at least inebriated on something. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the guy is sauced, he's blitzed, or something. I don't know what it is specifically. Maybe he's on Crocodile. I don't really know. But that guy is definitely using something. And he's apparently a big fan of it now because he's zooted on TV. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And do we have another one?
And yes, we do have one more. And real quick, let me grab this live chat before I miss it. So the first one said, do you like the Kirby or the MRAP better? It looks like 47% said they like the MRAP better. 34% said not sure, and only 19% said they like the Kirby. So I'm a little biased because I love the MRAP. I think it's one of the coolest looking vehicles out there. But I like the Kirby too, but I'd have to pick the MRAP over the Kirby. So Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I would have to pick the MRAP over the Kirby. The Kirby is cool, by no doubt. Let me pull it up real quick, actually. The Kirby APC. So this is the Kirby. And it looks pretty neat. I gotta say, pretty cool armored car. But the MRAP, if I can pull that one up, the MRAP to me just looks better. Also, I put Kirby APC. That's wrong. It's not an APC. I know I'm about to get flamed for that. But here's an MRAP. And that thing just looks cool to me. I think it's one of the coolest armored cars out there. So I would still have to go with the MRAP instead of the Kirby. But that's just me. Also, there's different kinds of MRAPs that the US uses. This one is also incredibly cool looking as well. I don't know the exact kinds of variants. The only one I know is the Max Pro, which is this one right here, which these have been sent to Ukraine in a decent, or well, an incredibly large amount. But I don't know a lot about every single model of MRAP that the United States produces, and also they're incredibly massive compared to the Humvee. There's a Humvee for scale, there's an MRAP. The things are huge. I mean, like even the smaller ones like these Max Pros look massive compared to a Humvee, but that's because they have so much armor protection built into them. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. And do we have any others?
And that is all for the polls for now.
All right, and so with that, let's get on to the 3 questions from the 3 questions from the chat, and then after we answer those 3 questions, we'll then be moving on back into the news segment and watching these Ukrainian soldiers in training laying down some mines.
All right, so first up, we have a $20 super chat from Avari Mandubratis, who is a channel legend, as we all know. Avari says, you knew this was coming. A YouTube BB-35 Texas dry dock flyover, narrated by Sam Elliott, please. Maybe talk about its service in World War I and World War II. Too slow for carriers, but great for protecting merchant ships and bombardment.
All right, thank you so much once again for the support, Avari. It helps out our channel a lot and helps us keep this thing running. And also, I know that you threw that in last night. I'm sorry that we didn't get to it because of time reasons, but let's get to that right now. And so, real quick, everyone, just to let y'all know, because I know that some people are going to be like, hey, man, this isn't Ukraine war. It is a super chat request, and because someone is supporting this channel and helping us to keep running, which Avari's been around forever and helping us to do that a whole load, we are going to do that because I owe it to him for this channel to even be running for us to cover the news. So real quick, I'm going to hop over here. The BB-35 flyover. There's a decent amount of them that I'm finding. Let me actually go to YouTube on the second screen and let me see if I can find a recent one. Hopefully not the same one we saw last time. Let's see. BB-35, flyover. And also make sure to hit the like button and also share this with your friends and subscribe if you would like, because it helps this channel to keep on running and it helps us to keep on putting out the news. And so let's see here. I think this one's the one. All right, so one second, I gotta let it play through some ads over here on the second screen.
Also, have y'all seen the weather report for Ukraine? It is -2 degrees Fahrenheit over there right now. That is freezing.
Dang. You know, Russians must be freezing to death out there. Like, it's got to be terrible, you know. But anyways, let's throw this over on the screen, and now it's time for me to whip out a Sam Elliott. And also, you know, I've been thinking about this, and we've been trying to get a little bit more serious over the past few days of the news coverage. But I've got to be honest with y'all, I like joking around a little bit, so I think we're going to go back to joking around. So with that, here is the video clip. And let me try and get in my zone here. Have you ever had yourself... Okay. The last of the dreadnoughts. The USS Texas was laid down in the shipyards in 1917, and we can see it returning to its original home now in 2021. The USS Texas was a real go-getter. It sat there and defended American forces both in the First World War and the Second World War. It even had a cool little venture at the Battle of Normandy, where it flooded one side of the ship so that way it could tilt up high enough for its guns to get on target. The thing's an absolute mammoth, a beast of American history, something that you ought to be admired and proud of. And as you look at it in this dry dock, I bet y'all are all going, oh boy howdy, I wish I had me one of those. And you can have yourself one of those if you're an American citizen. Every time an American is born, they get a USS Texas for free. Of course, shipping and handling not included. But take a look at that thing right there and tell me that that thing isn't a beaut. You can see a little bit of rusting and bad paint on top of the turrets. But beyond that, this thing is a spiffing American. A fine one at that. You can even see that they got a tug put on the back, because when you see that thing, you just think, boy, it needs a tug. Moving around the back of the ship again, you can see the ship's rudders, but you can't see any of the drive shafts because those have been pulled off the ship. You can actually see where they've been corked off right there like a fine bottle of wine. Looking at the back of the ship a little bit more, you can see the steel that it's made of is incredibly strong stuff. Made for a Ford Ram. Moving around the back of the ship again, you can see the word tug put back on it. Now moving up the rear, the stern of the ship again, you can see the ship's massive guns that once helped it to defend an American world. And with that, that's the end of that video. If you enjoyed this commentary on the Battleship Texas, make sure to give this video a like, or the live stream a like, which is what we're actually doing. And I might start making videos like this on the side. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support of Ari. I'm sorry we didn't get to that last night, but I hope you enjoyed it tonight, because I love doing the voices and the impressions. Sometimes, though, they do go out of style, like David Attenborough. Like, it's people like that one, but I can't do it anymore at all. But still, I hope you enjoyed that one here on the USS Texas, and thank you so much once again, Avari, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, so that way we can cover the news and also get around to the funny jokes. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is from Praise Adonai, who is another channel legend, who puts in a $40 donation and says, Enforcer and Matt, have the Russians run out of explosive drones or just surveillance drones? Great job. Yeah! And Slava Ukraine.
Yeah! And thank you so much once again for the support, Praise Adonai. For some reason, I was about to say Avari Mandubratis again inside my head. But to answer that question, as far as we know, the Russians have not run out of suicide drones or scout drones from what we've been able to tell, because while I didn't include this clip today because it was somewhat mundane and there was better news to cover, we did see that the Ukrainians are still shooting down the Orlan drones that are being used for reconnaissance ever since the beginning of the war. And so we do know that the Russians still have those drones, and from what we can tell, they're very easy to produce. The Russians may not have, I guess you could say, the ability to produce the computer parts that are inside of those drones, but one thing they definitely probably have is a stockpile of these computer parts that they continue to put into these drones and keep them operating that way. And so, by and large, I would have to say that it's most likely the case that they are still able to produce and field these drones. It's just that we don't get to see or hear a lot of news about them anymore because they may not be used, although they do have them. And so with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Once again, working off of the information we have and what we've seen, because we have seen an Orlan and other drones that the Russians have used broken down into the pieces it's made of, and its use is pretty simple stuff. Like an Orlan actually uses a Nikon camera to look around, which is incredibly cheap because you can find those everywhere. I mean, like it's a $40 camera. And also the Orlan itself uses a 2-stroke motor that an RC plane would use. So it's not an incredibly complex drone, but still, even at that, we're not seeing them much, but I think that they still have a decent amount of them and they're still being used. It's just that we don't get a lot of video or picture evidence of it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support of Avari. You've helped us out. Well, not Avari, dang it. Praise Adonai. You've helped us out a whole load in helping us keep this channel running. And if it wasn't for viewers like you, running the stream today wouldn't be possible. Also, just in case, if you would like to help out the Lee Spring Army in continuing to grow and continue to share this news around all of YouTube and also the rest of the world, make sure to share the Enforcer channel on your social media page and also hit the like button on this stream, because the more y'all hit the like button, the more this gets promoted to other people out there on YouTube and the more they see it. From what we can tell, we may actually be shadow banned because it seems as though we're not getting new viewers anymore at all. I even put up a video today, and I'm wondering if y'all got a notification for it, because hardly anyone's seeing anything anymore, and it looks like people may not be notified that we're even still running streams and videos anymore, which is kind of odd to me, and I wonder why, if we've been shadow banned, that we have been. The copyright strikes have now all been lifted, and we're doing what we've been doing for 281 days. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again, Praise Adonai, and thank you everyone for helping this channel to keep on going. And let's get to the news of the mine laying in northern Kyiv.
We had one more to go.
Oh, we do?
I believe so. And the last one goes to Gary Robbins, who puts in a $20 donation. And Gary is a channel legend also. So all three of them in the first segment have been legends. So Gary says, please let someone else ask a question.
And thank you so much once again for the support. And we will make sure that a live chat is answered. And thank you so much, Gary, once again for the support. Because, like I say to everyone, it helps this channel to keep on running. And so with that, what is the live chat?
And the live chat goes to Midwest Vikinger, who says, Enforcer, apparently there is a rumor of a former U.S. Marine general commanding the Wagner's British battalion. Have you seen that?
I have not, actually. I would be completely out of the loop on that one. He's saying that there's a British commander of the Wagner group?
Yes.
Huh.
Wait a minute, hold on. He said a former U.S. Marine general commanding the British battalion of the Wagner group.
I have actually not heard of a British detachment of the Wagner group, and I've also not heard of an American general doing that as well. And I believe if that was the case, I think that would make national news here in the United States, because everyone would be gunning for that guy, pretty much. So, unfortunately, I have not heard about that, but I will look into that and see if that's true or not. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Gary, and thank you so much for letting us get to that live chat. But as far as I know, that is not true. I don't even think there's enough British, I guess you could say, volunteers for the Russians to make a British detachment, especially of the Wagner group, and also considering that they're hyper-nationalist and kind of, I guess you could say, fascist in a way, it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for them to bring in foreigners into their unit. So I'll be looking into that, but as far as I know, that would be untrue just off of the base, I guess you could say, just right off the bat. And so with that, it's now time for us to move into northern Kyiv and check out these Ukrainian soldiers training to lay down mines.
Мінуємо територію від різного роду гостей з
You
півночі.
see him giving us a
Слава
little bit of an
Україні!
intro as to what they're doing. And now our ears are being blasted with the loudest music ever. We now see them digging up small parts of the road and getting ready to put the mine in. We now see that they've dug a perfect circle, and the little mine's being put in, ready for the next truck, ready for the next car to drive over. But of course, they're not going to set it off in northern Ukraine. We can now see them on the training field still. And with that, that's the end of the video, but it is pretty nice to see that the Ukrainians are still conducting training programs of their own and helping out and making sure that they are ready to deal with whatever will come next. Of course, the Ukrainians have been getting a lot of help from Western allies like the British, along with other countries that have been helping to train Ukrainian soldiers, but it looks like they're still taking on some training themselves and making sure to do it at home. And so with that, don't try that at home, folks. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bits of news, which are our location unknowns. Starting off with our first clip of a Ukrainian soldier returning home to his family. And I thought this was a very nice one to start off on, because it's a high note. And so with that, here's the video, but I can't play it because, y'all wouldn't believe it, it's got music. When we see the Ukrainian soldier walking up to his family, it looks like his mom's come out and is hugging him. He's even found time to get some flowers on his way home. We now see him walking up to the rest of his family with even more bouquets to give out. He gave his mom, I believe, an orchid. You see him hugging a relative. I'm guessing maybe his younger brother, or maybe I don't really know the relation there, sadly. But with that, that's the end of the video. And I gotta say, it's always great to see Ukrainian families being reunited with each other, especially soldiers that have been on the front lines, because one thing that not a lot of people like to think about, but it's a reality, is that it's not a cakewalk for Ukrainian soldiers either. It's incredibly tough out there on the front lines, especially in battlefields like Bakhmut, where they're living in muddy conditions in those trenches every single day, being bombarded by Russian artillery, going up against endless swarms and hordes, pretty much, of Russian soldiers assaulting their positions, and then somehow they still survive. They still have a pretty positive outlook on life and make it home and see their families. And that adds a whole other level to this, and it adds a whole other, I guess you could say, layer to what these soldiers are really dealing with and experiencing. And I've got to say, it's a great thing to see that they're willing to stand up to their for their families and fight for the country they live in. And there's plenty there, and you just got to give them a load of credit for that, because there's a lot of people out there who would just go running for the hills. But these people, the Ukrainian people, are incredibly brave, and whenever they're faced with adversity, they step up to the challenge. They don't run off. They step up to the challenge, and they fight for what's theirs: their family, their homes, their land, their nation. And that's something to really be, I guess you could say, praised for, because you know, we live in a world where it seems like not many would do that, but whenever normal people have to rise to an abnormal occasion, they always do, much like the Ukrainians have been right now. And so with that, we're now moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see a Stugna taking out a Russian tank. Now, these kinds of clips we don't run on anymore, but we can see right here, we are now. We got another one. We got to mute it because I think it's playing music. Let me check again. Yeah, that's music. Sadly, I hate to say that. But we can see the missile on its way. We can also hear a little bit of reverb in Matthew's microphone. And we can now see the Russian tank getting hit and being set on fire. We now see another angle of the tank burning out of the barrel. It looks like the breech may have been open, and now the ammo is cooking off. Oh, look at that. It's a double. It looks like this one got detract at some point, and this one just got knocked out. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I think I know what happened here, Matthew. This was a Russian T-72B trying to recover a partially damaged T-72B that had been abandoned on the front line, and the Ukrainian Stugna finished off pretty much the recovery tank that was out there to get that one off the front.
Isn't that a shame?
Isn't that a shame? It looks like the Ukrainians got a 2-in-1. And I gotta say, quite a nice combo meal. I think that the Ukrainians should start getting these more and more often, but of course, we don't want them to get obese. With that, we're moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can also see a captured Buke system. And so, here's the video. We can see the Buke right there being dragged off by the... Oh. Did you see that, Matthew?
What was it?
Oh.
Is that a John Deere in the wild?
It's a John Deere tractor.
No way.
Apex Predator, by the way. It's probably what found the Buke. And then the Ukrainian army descended upon the tractor with the Buke and took it off of its hands. But we can see them dragging away an entirely intact Buke. You can even see the Russian markings right there on the side. Well, that's the end of this little clip. But it's always nice to see that the Ukrainians are somehow still getting free equipment on almost a completely stagnant front line. And not only that, we got to see Tractor! And if y'all know the video I'm talking about, you know. But with that, we are now moving on into the next bit of Location Unknown news, where we can then see that the Ukrainians have built a snowman. I would also like to thank Susie, Halsey, and the Discord for showing me this one, because I found it there. And so this is pretty neat. So here's the video. So this snowman is absolutely strapped. It looks like Frosty the Snowman is now joined the gang. And of course, you know, if you ever watched the sequels to Frosty the Snowman, you will know that it goes die-hard mode later on, and Frosty the Snowman actually dies in an incinerator because he tried to take on the Peruvian gangs of San Diego. But we can see right here that he's come back to life, smoking a cig, holding the strap. He's not gonna get clapped this time.
Короче,
And also he's got a little goatee.
твій сектор на 12 часов. Зброю застосовувати згідно інструкції. А я піду поки полежу з годинку, добро? Все, давай, чітко неси службу.
Also, I have no idea how they got the nose to stick out like that. This is like a Squidward nose, and they actually got it to fit and not fall off. I've never dealt with snow a lot. Living in Alabama, you don't really deal with snow much. So I'm wondering how that works. Maybe it's sticky snow, I don't know. Anyways, it's still pretty cool to see the snowman, and I thought it was pretty funny. And so, with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little bit of news, and on into our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see the Russian casualty report for the day. Also, X-Mojo said Frosty the Merkman, and I gotta say, that is probably the... Frosty the... We need to make that merch. Frosty the Merkman. Anyways, moving on to the casualty report. They're getting very close to 90,000. It may actually be just tomorrow that we'll see that they crossed the 90,000 mark, or maybe in about 2 or 3 days. They lost another 500 soldiers today, 6 armored personnel carriers, 3 tanks, 6 fuel trucks, 1 artillery piece, 7 drones, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, which was that Buke that we saw captured today. And it looks like they're starting to take a decent amount of losses again. The casualty rate hasn't gotten as high as it was during the first Battle of Bakhmut, but we can see that the second Battle of Bakhmut, or Bottle of Bakhmut, whichever one, if you're an alcoholic, it would be the Bottle of Bakhmut, you can see that it is starting to climb a little bit. We've seen that it's gone from around 400 at the onset of the second battle to around 500, about a 100 increase per day, and it looks like it's going to continue to climb as the battles go on, and more Russian units engage the Ukrainian forces, and more of them begin to be depleted, exhausted, and then worn down by Ukrainian defenders. We can also see that the armored personnel carrier losses have gone up, but the tank losses have remained largely the same. So we'll have to wait and see if these casualty reports start to indicate even higher amounts of losses, like the unbelievable losses we saw during the first Battle of Bakhmut, because if so, those losses can only be sustained for a short while, just about 2 weeks or so, and if it goes on any further than that, then we're probably going to watch the second Battle of Bakhmut end again in the next several weeks, and it will be a Ukrainian victory again, with the Ukrainians having repelled the Russians, but the Russians making a Pyrrhic amount of ground for the amount of losses they took. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of the location unknowns and back towards the northeastern area of the front line. Now, one thing I gotta say, and this is very interesting to me, and I bet it's probably interesting to y'all as well, is that over the past few days, actually, and let me wait for this to load. So right here is the 30th, this is the 29th, this is the 28th, this is the 27th, this is the 26th. So you can see that the only change on the Deep State UA map on the 26th day of November was that they integrated this small blue area into the front line, and that was it. And you can see that over the past 5 days, pretty much, going all the way back to the 25th, the front line's not moved at all, not 1 inch in any area near the Spitove region. Largely assuming off of precedent before, the area around Chuhuiv had not ever moved for months on end until the Ukrainians decided to attack one day and they breached the line near Balaklia, and then the entire area collapsed within 3 days. So that may be what we're seeing here. We may be seeing the Ukrainians preparing to strike, and once they do, the Russians will probably lose a massive amount of ground again in this area and be pushed all the way back to Starobilsk, but we can't really say for certain right now. One thing we can say, though, is that there is no frontline activity here, and it looks like everything has come to a stop. It's largely become static in this area, with the major battles occurring on the Donetsk front line, which is suicidal for the Russians, and then the only place that they will probably be able to make any kind of ground, which we are seeing in the Bakhmut region. And so with that, let's move on from the casualty report and on into the northeast area, starting off with an interesting clip somewhere in the northeast, we couldn't really say where, of a amphibious vehicle taking an ambulance across. Now, I think I may have misseen this earlier. No, I'm actually correct. It is an amphibious Ukrainian vehicle taking a Ukrainian ambulance across the river. See it getting down into that river.
Переправа.
We now see that thing actually trucking it across. For it to be an amphibious vehicle, you never expect them to move that quickly. But that thing's kicking it.
It's like a duck.
Yeah, it's like a big duck. You know, there was actually a American vehicle in the Second World War called a Duck W boat, which was really cool looking. Like, here it is right here. The thing's bizarre. They still use them in, like, tourist, I guess you could say, traps and stuff like that. But here's one of them right here. Thing's wacky. Thing's huge, too. You can see how long it is. And they would use this thing during the Normandy invasion to transport supplies and also soldiers. But probably one of the more interesting ones from the Second World War, going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, was the Amtrak, which was a... here we go. Not the Amtrak. It's trying to make me go to the Amtrak Railroad Company. The Amtrak APC. These Amtraks were pretty neat. And now it's showing me all of the modern, I believe, the LVTPs. Right there, the LVTPs. I'm trying to find the World War II Amtraks, dagnabbit. And it's not showing any of them to me now. Now it's only showing the modern ones. So let me go back 1 second to this one. And I think this is about the best we'll get right here. But these were very neat. They use these a lot in the Pacific. We can even see a better, I guess you could say, illustration or a model right here of one of them. And they would use these a load. The Marine Corps had plenty of these, along with the Army, if you're fighting in the Pacific. And they would use these to drop off soldiers and also transport a load of supplies around. Amphibious vehicles are not new at all. Ever since the concept of having an armored vehicle moving at all, there's always been the concept of making the thing float. But still, it's crazy to see one so large that is carrying an entire ambulance across a large reservoir, which is pretty impressive, honestly. And so with that, it's time for us to move on from that little...
And Enforcer, real quick, I have some pretty big news here that just came out about, it looks like, a few hours ago. And thanks to Mick Ranger for alerting me to it. It looks like the Pentagon awards Raytheon $1.2 billion to supply Ukrainian forces NASAMS.
Really?
Yes, and it looks like they have been fully approved to send them as well.
Oh my lord. And wait a minute, hang on. Let's see. The acquisition of a NASAMS for an amount of $1 billion. How many NASAMS was that, though?
It says 8.
8 NASAMS? Jeez. That's actually a lot of NASAMS. Let's see, for an amount of $1 billion. But how many did Hungary get for $1 billion? Announced the delivery of 2 NASAMS to Ukraine. Let's see. Hang on. Maybe it says it up here.
It looks like in November they got their first 2, and now they're going to get 8, but it's unclear exactly when they're going to be delivered.
Interesting. Let me go look at the NASAMS real quick, because if they got a contract for them for $1.2 billion, you say?
Yes, $1.2 billion.
1.2 billion, and the missiles have a range of 30 kilometers. Did it say it was a NASAMS 2, a NASAMS 3, or just the normal NASAMS system?
It looks like the standard NASAMS system.
So it only has a range of 30 kilometers. So let's translate that to miles. 30 kilometers to miles. And it has a range of 18.6 miles. So not the biggest, but it is quite significant. For example, if we look at Kyiv, 18 miles out from the outskirts near Troishina is that far away. And so if a missile comes anywhere around a defensive ring in any major city, and considering that they now have 10 of them total once the 8 arrive in Ukraine that are now being made, they will be able to make some defensive rings around some of the major cities like Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Kherson as well. Maybe Zaporizhia and Dnipro if they really stretch them out. And thinking about it,
That is worth it. Yeah!
and I gotta say, that is pretty impressive. One big Netshot said 19 miles. It pretty much is. 18.6 is really just 19. So pretty decent, actually. Let me think about that again real quick. If you had two of them near Zaporizhia, you could protect the south and the north from missile attacks on Zaporizhia. If you had 2 of them in Dnipro, you could do the same. It's almost the same city. If you had 2 in Kharkiv, you could do the same. And 2 in Kyiv, you could do the same. So, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. So you would have 8 NASAMs alone in those 4 cities, and then you could put another 2 in Kherson, or you could put 1 in Kherson and 1 in Odessa, and you could create almost a shield protecting the entirety of the southern area of having any cruise missiles fly further inland, and also protecting the major cities down there from attack. And you could also protect Kyiv and Kharkiv from attack as well. But one problem is that you would not be able to protect from cruise missiles fired inside Belarus if they were to go further west like Lviv, Lutsk, or Ternopil, because there wouldn't be any NASAMs to spare. But still, that is impressive to hear and really good news. I thank you so much, Mick Ranger, for sharing that with us, because that is incredibly good news, and I hope that we see those NASAMs arriving within a month or 2, as they probably won't be produced immediately. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next bit of news on the actual northeastern front line, where we can see some Ukrainian tanks dashing through the snow on a 2-track open tank. Actually, I'm sorry, a 2-track open tank would be a Russian tank. Ukrainian tanks are actually closed because they haven't exploded. Also, that's some music right there. And we can see that they've actually got these winter camo covers for the tanks.
Man, what did they film this on? Like one of those old style, like 16mm cameras?
Maybe. Like, it's got a weird color distortion. It honestly looks like something from the Yugoslavian wars or the Serbian war. Like from the
Are we
late
sure it's from
90s.
2022?
Oh, it is from 2022, but this crap looks ancient, man. Like, I'm expecting seeing that guy playing the accordion talking about Serbia as a blessed land or something. But with that, that's the end of this video, and a pretty nice one to see some Ukrainian tanks moving around on the northeastern front. But beyond that, we haven't really gotten a lot of reports or news of what's going on up there. Hopefully, we'll be getting some soon and seeing if the Ukrainians have any plans to do anything, or they may be hunkering in and waiting for a while until the Russians make their move, and once they whittle down their forces, they immediately counterattack and start to make swaths of ground. But with that, it's now time for us to move on from the northeastern area near Svatove and down towards the area of Kremenna, where we saw as well a HIMARS at night. This was also taken on a camera in the late 2000s, circa 2008. We can hear them playing horror music in the background, and now we can see them standing in front of the smiling HIMARS. A really cool HIMARS, I gotta say. La 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 control. And we can see them now giving their little speech about the HIMARS and how it works, probably.
They went over the top with that edit.
They did. They absolutely went insane with that. We now see the HIMARS moving on along. And with that, that's the end of the video. But for some reason, with that thing lumbering around the corner like that, Matthew, for some reason I expected it, I just thought in my head of like some goofy clown laugh while it's going around that corner. Like, you know, or something like that for some reason. Yeah. Like, it looks cool when they have the doors open, but it kind of looks a little goofy when they have them closed. But still, I like the art. I think it looks pretty cool. I think it's intimidating, a neat little piece to take pictures of. And of course, it's a HIMARS. It's one of the most effective long-range artillery system the Ukrainians have at this point in the war. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip of news around the Kremenna area, and we're now going to be moving behind the lines to Yampol. In case y'all didn't know, Yampol, while being a small town in Ukraine, actually had a zoo of its own. And I'll try and show y'all Yampol right here. Here's the town, incredibly small, actually pretty sparse as well, but they have a small animal sanctuary here where they kept some pretty neat animals. You can actually see the ostrich farm here, and that's what it is. It's pretty much just an ostrich farm, but apparently they also had a couple of, I guess you could say, rarer or exotic animals that were held here, and when the Ukrainians returned, they found out something pretty interesting. The Russians had eaten all of them, and also left a remainder that they didn't eat to die in their enclosures from starvation. And so here's a video of a keeper coming back to Yampol and showing y'all that pretty much all of the ostriches and other exotic animals had been eaten or allowed to starve. So here's the video.
Мы находимся на территории фермы в Ямполе. Здесь до полномасштабного вторжения Российской Федерации проживали животные. Среди них были волки, были верблюды. Страусиная ферма здесь была. Сегодня ферма побита. Буквально недалеко отсюда идут боевые действия. И здесь, на территории, мы нашли труп верблюда. Зооветеринары рассказали нам, что его звали Гоша, и он умер от голода.
And so with that, as seen in the video, and you can see that the Russians are still up to their typical crap, abusing animals, killing exotic animals, maybe even endangered animals in some cases. And who cares? The Russians, that's their philosophy. Who really cares? They're just going to go around and commit war crimes on an unprecedented scale. They'll go and just do crazy things like eating dogs in the Bucha Hospital European area, or again, the Russians committing their usual horrendous crap. It's actually pretty wild to think, because it used to be that I used to be incredibly infuriated by this stuff, and it still angers me a good bit. But the Russians have done so much crap, committed so many crimes, that it's almost just like another thing that the Russians have done. It's almost expected at this point. Wherever the Ukrainians liberate, wherever they go, and they're pushing the Russians out of that area, it's almost always expected at this point that we'll be hearing of some kind of atrocity, whether it was committed against people, committed against animals, committed against the city as a whole. They always leave traces of their barbarism behind, and hopefully one day we can find the Russians who are doing this stuff and hold them accountable. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news in the Zolotarivka area, where we actually saw a village after Russian occupation, and it did not look good. As you can see here, of course, a small village once again met with the desolation and destruction that would have made you think that a complete large-scale war happened in this area. And of course, the Russians do nothing to try and help out these people. From what we know, the Russians actually retreated out of this town. Of course, that's why the Ukrainians are taking pictures of it. But they had been here for nearly 5 months. And yet they never repaired any of the houses from the damage they sustained during the battles that occurred 5 months before. So, of course, the people who lived here, the people who were overrun by the Russians and weren't allowed to flee, had to live in these kinds of conditions for months on end, just because the Russians didn't really care. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of that area, and we're also going to be moving down south of Bakhmut, and into the Orlivka area, and I believe we did cover that news. So now it's time for us to move down to Zaitseva, as opposed to the Zaitseva we were at earlier, where we are going to be watching a clip of another Russian tank, a T-80BV actually, one of Russia's better tanks that they have now, being destroyed. Now, before we get there, I just saw Matthew throw up a poll, which means that as he's throwing up one poll, another one came down and a lot of votes. We're probably cast on that, and y'all probably had a lot of opinions on it. And so with that, let's hear the poll.
Right. So the first one said, are you disappointed that the EU says that they cannot seize Russian bank assets for Ukraine? It looks like 82% said yes, the EU should have done it anyway. 9% said not sure, and 9% said no, they don't have the authority. Now, apparently, they did have the authority, but they chose not to do it for some reason. I'm not really sure what the explanation was, but I do see the article from the Wall Street Journal saying that they did not choose to do it. So, personally, me, I think they should have. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I think that they should help out Ukraine by seizing Russian assets and giving it to them, because the Russians have now been declared by the European Union a terrorist state, and so they should be treated like one, and their assets that were in Western banks or in Western hands at all should be handed over to Ukraine to help them out in the current situation they're dealing with. It would be completely amiss to say that the Ukrainians are not dealing with financial problems of their own. A war is incredibly expensive to follow through for any side and causes a lot of economic damage, and so that support monetarily could help the Ukrainians to keep weathering this war and keep on going. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, a correction. The news article that I was looking at about the NASAMS, it said 8, but they misquoted something there. It's actually 8 total, but they're getting 6 more. That's the new amount that they're getting, so it's only 6. So when you're looking at that most recent poll, keep in mind that it is not 8, it is only 6 more. Enforcer, do you want to answer some questions first and then come back to it, or go ahead and address it?
Oh, we'll answer some questions first, so that way we can let the poll get some time for people to throw in their votes, because we like to hear from all of y'all. So we want to have the poll have a little bit of time to make sure to get some results, but also one other thing, another merciless plug. If you are enjoying the stream right now and you have not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. And also, if you want more people to join the Lee Spring Army, make sure to hit the like button and also share this with your friends. Because the more y'all help the Lee Spring Army to grow, the longer we are able to keep running the news, because there's people around to watch it, and the more we are able to keep on going. And so, thank you to everyone who subscribes. Thank you to everyone who hits the like button and also shares this with y'all friends. Y'all are true members of the Lee Spring Army, every single one of y'all. And you know, last night I actually saw, I forgot who it was exactly, but someone said, "Oh man, I can't send in super chats or donate or anything, so I would be a member of the Lee Spring Army if it wasn't for that." And I just want y'all to all know that you are members of the Lee Spring Army. If you're here and you want to be a member of the Lee Spring Army, you are a member of the Lee Spring Army. You don't have to do anything to become one. You just have to be here and say, "Yeah, I want to be a member of the Lee Spring Army," and boom, bada boom, you're a member. So I thank you all so much once again just for being here. It's a pleasure to cover the news with all of y'all. But with that, let's get on into the question segment.
All right, so up first, we have a very generous $50 super chat from Blue Flam 777, who says, "Yee!" Oh my God.
God,
Hold
man.
on a minute. Yee-haw! And whoop whoop to you both. Your dedication to the cause is beautiful and appreciated. LSA, and send a question to the chat, and Slava Ukraine. And Blue Flam, I almost gave out, man, on that super chat, but thank you.
And thank you so much for the support, Blue Flame 777. It helps this channel to keep on running, and without y'all support, this wouldn't be possible. And so I gotta thank you once again, and and thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. I think that all of y'all who support us to help this channel to keep running are incredible in y'all's way, because while we run the stream every single day without pause, it is y'all who support this channel that help us to keep doing it. Y'all help us to keep the lights on. Y'all help us to do everything in the background, so that way we can always focus on this stream and make sure to cover the news each and every day. So while you're saying your dedication to the cause is beautiful and appreciated, your support to me, helping to keep the cause going, is beautiful and heavily appreciated by me, because it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for y'all. And so thank you so much once again for the support, and let's get a question from the live chat.
Right, and the question goes to Steve Hughes, who says, "Could you maybe address why we don't see or hear of the Ukrainian air defenses in action?"
The reason why we don't really hear a lot about Ukrainian air defenses in action is because it's very hard to film. And we usually hear that the Ukrainians shoot down a decent amount of cruise missiles, and sometimes we do see those instances on film, but that's quite rare. Anything that involves air power, whether it be cruise missiles, aircraft, helicopters, usually involves a great deal of distance. Modern aircraft can engage each other from a distance of nearly 150 miles apart, called beyond visual range. And a lot of surface-to-air missile defense systems and missile defense systems and air defense systems in general have a firing range that is sometimes so far that it can cross entire countries. And so it's very hard to hear or see anything about those weapon systems, because they just involve such a great range that you can be at the end of the surface-to-air missile defense system, or you can be standing by it, watch it fire, and you'll never see it hit its target because the target is so far away. So that's usually why we never really hear a lot about Ukraine's air defense systems, but every once in a while we do get a smidgen and clips of videos where we do see it in action. It does look like it's doing fairly well considering the equipment they're working with. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Blue Flame 777, for the support and helping this thing to keep on running.
And the next one goes to Cliff H, who puts in a $10 donation. Cliff says, "Enforcer, regarding Crimea, Why do you think Sevastopol is regarded so highly by Russia compared fleet harborage along Sea of Azov or the southern Black Sea coastline? Is it geography or Putin's ego?
It is completely geography. It's not really the ego of Putin. The idea of Sevastopol being where it is that it's a deep water port and it can be used by large ships. That's actually a great point. Why don't the Russians use the Sea of Azov? The Sea of Azov is only 46 feet deep at its deepest. Let me make sure of that. The deepest part of the Sea of Azov, 46 feet. The deepest the Sea of Azov gets is 46 feet deep, which means that this sea is completely unusable to larger ships. Nothing can really use this that is of actual size. Maybe a couple, maybe some supply ships can make it through if they're lightly loaded and they're not lying low in the water, because if they lie low in the water, chances are is that the sea is so shallow in most places that it'll just run aground on the bottom of the literal sea, and that's why they're not using the Sea of Azov for their ships. Also, a lot of people go, well, why don't they use Novorossiysk? Novorossiysk is a port, and it does have access to the deeper waters of the Black Sea, but at the same time, the infrastructure isn't really there to maintain a large fleet, and so the Russians would have to invest a massive amount of money and also pretty much restructure the entirety of their navy, the southern operations of their navy, to be able to use Novorossiysk as a viable port. And so, really, at the end of it all, the only suitable port for the Russians to use in the entirety of the Black Sea or the southern area is Sevastopol. And if they don't have Sevastopol, the Black Sea fleet practically ceases to exist. They would really have to break the thing up and send it further north and integrate it into other units. And then that means that their navy wouldn't be able to operate for about 3 months of the year because the ports in the north, like Armyansk and St. Petersburg, freeze over during the winter months, which means that the fleets can't really leave. Because if they leave and something happens, they can't get back into port to do anything because, well, it's frozen over. You can't get in there. So that is the main reason why the Russians hold so much credit to Sevastopol. And that's why I've said that it'll probably be a hell of a problem when the Ukrainians finally get to Crimea and start marching into it, which I have no doubt that they will be able to with ease, because the Russians will probably freak out and actually seriously consider or use tactical nuclear weapons against Ukraine, because at that point, their strategic concerns are being threatened. And if they lose Sevastopol, they pretty much lose any standing left that they have, the very little that they have, internationally, because they won't be able to power project anywhere for that matter for 3 to 4 months of the year, and they also won't be able to really compete with anyone worldwide or interdict with anything they need to south of, I guess you could say, the North Sea and the North Atlantic. So with that, I hope that addresses that question fairly well. A really good question, and that would be my answer to it. It also could boil down to well, I would say that it really doesn't boil down to Putin's psychotic ego on this one. He does have an ego, and he is a nutty madman. But Russia didn't have Crimea when he came into power, and they didn't lose it either. It's always been Ukrainian. So I think that this really has more to do with his maniacal, psychotic impulses to try and recreate the Russian Empire, and for that reason, they have to have Sevastopol, so that way the Russians can actually power project beyond pretty much the furthest northern areas of the world. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are now on into the next question.
All right, and for our final question before we address that poll, we have a $10 super chat from Commander O'Brien, who says, "Good morning from Copenhagen."
Also, good morning to you, and also, hello to Copenhagen. That is really cool to hear you're from Copenhagen, and also that the Lee Spring Army has people around the entirety of the globe. So real quick, let's go to Copenhagen, and let's look at it. I think we've looked at it before, so I want to find a new spot. Like, what is this? An opera house. What does it look like on the inside?
Wow.
That is a giant roof. Dang! That thing is massive! Also, it's got a nice lobby. Look at that. Man,
That's very nice. I like that kind of architecture.
And there's the view from the other side of the strait. Also, nice sailing ship right there. Man, Copenhagen's pretty neat. Also, this opera house is just over the top nice. It's luxurious. That's that Copenhagen money. That's what you get when you sell dip, Matthew. You get nice opera houses. But let's actually go into the town. Let's actually go to the town real quick and take a look at this nice park. Oh, man. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I want to go to Copenhagen.
Don't you appreciate how the trees are like sort of like meshed together a little bit?
Yeah, and they're like perfectly trimmed, like they're box shaped. And also, this is such a narrow street. This is like a pedestrian footpath. I bet you it was at one point. Or it was a actual road. It may have been a 2-lane road, and then they made the sidewalk extend out further. Because you can see some pavers over there where it looked like the sidewalk used to be, and then they just added on to it. But really cool all around. Also, if I'm correct, there's a royal family of Denmark. Yeah, the Danish royal family. Y'all have a royal family. And that's kind of weird. You know, because a lot of American schools, a lot of my American viewers may be able to agree with me here and say that this is true. In America, they don't really teach you that a lot of European countries still have monarchies. They almost completely don't mention that unless they're talking about Britain, because we overthrew King George. They have a king and a queen, and they treat their people like crap. But that's not true, because the English Civil War had already happened. King Charles I had been killed, and when the Great Restoration occurred, the royal powers were still heavily limited, even when King George III was around. So that wasn't really true. But still, that's really the only royal family they tell you about in Europe, and they don't tell you about all the other royal families, like the Swedish royal family. I believe, if I'm correct, let me make sure. Countries with royal families in Europe. Let me just go to a map real quick so I'm not getting any of this wrong, and let me show y'all. Okay, so you can see right here in purple, or I guess you could say that would be claret, the countries that have royal families. The United Kingdom, of course, the most famous royal family in the world. The Spanish, they have a royal family still. For some reason, they never tell you this stuff. Andorra also has a royal family. I believe that would be Monaco, right there on the coast of France, that has a royal family. Liechtenstein has a royal family. They have a prince. And then it looks like the Vatican, of course, a royal family. That would be the Pope, which really isn't a royal family. I don't even know why they're classifying that as a royal family. Anyways, Denmark has a royal family. Belgium has a royal family. The Netherlands has a royal family. And Luxembourg does as well. Beyond that, most countries in Europe do not have one, but still, it's incredibly misleading when you're growing up in an American school, because they never tell you stuff like some of these countries still have royal families. Like, you're made to believe that the King and Queen of Spain existed in 1492 only to fund Christopher Columbus's expedition to the Americas, and beyond that, they just cease to exist. They never come up again. And that's really with everyone else in Europe as well. They never really explained that a lot of them survived into the modern day. So that's kind of weird to me. And also, let's see. I'm reading the live chat. Also, Matthew, I can hear a little bit of reverb of myself in your microphone. It's really quiet, but I can hear it. And I think they might be able to hear that on stream as well.
It can't be, though, because I have headphones on.
I promise you, man, I'm hearing it. And if you want to hear a replay of the stream afterwards, it's like a 5-second delay in between when I say something and when I hear it, like, very slightly coming back through your headset. And also, let's see, Italy, is San Marino, has a principality, not the Vatican. That is not San Marino. That little dot right there, that purple dot, is in Rome. San Marino is the blue dot that's up here where my mouse cursor is at right now. And they count San Marino as a democracy, which is not true, because you are correct. San Marino does have some kind of a principality or something similar, but they're counting the Vatican as a royal family, which makes no sense. Anyways, it's pretty interesting to me that there is a royal family of Denmark, because you rarely ever hear about the royal families of Europe, unless if it's the British royal family. They're the only one that makes the news anywhere. But still, Copenhagen is a beautiful place. But real quick, let's actually extend out into some of the modern workings of Copenhagen. Not the old part of the town, but the newer parts of town. And let's see if those still stand up and look as good as the inner part of town. They do. Actually, this is quite nice. I'm really impressed. the Danish really have one up on a lot of people around the world. It's a nice place. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support and also saying hello to us from Copenhagen. And it's cool to hear that a whole load of our members from the Lee Spring Army are really everywhere all around the world. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I think that was the last one of the segment, if I'm correct, Matthew.
It was. So now it is time to address the poll question. Real quick, let me finish up this message here. There we go. And this poll said, do you think the delivery of more NASAMS is enough for Ukraine to mount a strong defense? It looks like 61% said no, they need more. 20% said yes, it is adequate, and 19% said not sure. Now on this one, I've got to say that if the short-range missiles that the NASAMS has have a range of 16 miles and the long range have a 31-mile range, a total of 8 NASAMS units is not going to be enough. So we would have to send more. Now that requires more money and more spending, but like we always say, it's worth it because Ukraine's sovereignty is of utmost importance. So Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that they do need more. 8 NASAM systems total can only defend a handful of towns in Ukraine. I think that they should need at least about 12 to 16 of them, because at that point they can actually create something of a shield on the southern part of the country, and even in the north around Kyiv or some of the major cities like Lviv, and stop almost all cruise missiles from reaching any of their targets or hitting civilians in the process of failing to hit their targets or being aimed directly at them. So I would largely have to agree that there should be more of them, just for that reason. And although 6 of them does cost quite a good deal, $1.2 billion for 6 NASAMs. And if we divide that down, let's see, 1.2 billion. So let me flip my phone sideways so that we can put that all in. 1.2 billion divided by 6. That means that a single NASAM system costs $200 million to produce. So they are quite expensive, but I do think that they should need more of them. About 12 of them, really, additionally on top of the 2 that they already have there.
Where's that Iron Dome at, though, that everybody was promising? That kind of just went away.
Yeah, the Iron Dome disappeared, and also it can't really be used for any of the threats Ukraine's facing. It's more so for, I guess you could say, like, grad rockets, mortar fire, and things like that, and Ukraine's dealing with cruise missile attacks, so it really couldn't even be used against cruise missiles. I don't even know why the Israelis would step up and offer that, considering that they knew that that system was not made to protect against cruise missiles or anything similar, and then back out because it just makes them look like, you know, they're not supporting Ukraine, although we know that they have, because we've seen Israeli armored cars inside of Ukraine. But with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and now it's time for us to move on from the question segment. I thank you all so much once again for throwing in y'all's support and also some pretty interesting comments and allowing us to take a look at y'all's hometowns. And it's now time for us to move on down south of Bakhmut and into the area of Orlivka, where we saw that Russian T-80BV getting evaporated. And so with that, here's the video. When you see the T-80BV down there, it's on fire, I'd have to say. Insurance doesn't cover these things, sadly, so the Russians just have to come out on this one and chalk it up as a loss. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news, further south in the area of Nokolavnyove, where we can see some Su-25s from the Ukrainian Air Force flying over the countryside and also being screened or covered by a Ukrainian MiG-29. It was an incredibly cool video, so I'm going to let y'all see it without further ado. We see the Su-25s, and then the MiG-29 right there. That was really cool. And
it's fallen.
And it really is. And so with that, that's the end of that video, and really cool to see that the Ukrainians are now covering their Su-25s with air superiority fighters like the MiG-29. With that, we're now going to be moving down to the area of Avdiivka, where we can see that the Avdiivka city area has artillery support from the Ukrainian armed forces. We're going to have to mute that. But we can see them operating their artillery pieces. These are of an older Soviet design. I believe that this one is actually a D-20, if I'm correct. It's either a D-20 or a D-30. I forgot which one is which. We'd even see that they set up a little net over this artillery piece. They've done quite a good job. Now I see him talking about the artillery piece and how they're using it in the Avdiivka area. Also, thank you, James Lynn, for saying it's a D30. I thought it was a D30 or a D20. I was like, those are the two major ones, but I forgot which one was which. So I thank you for clarifying that for me. We now see them pushing the round into the breach, and then the charge right behind it. We now see them turning the gun, firing again. And with that, that's the end of the video, and pretty interesting to see the Ukrainians using that older Soviet artillery piece in the area of Avdiivka, but hopefully hitting the targets all the same. Also, real quick, I actually saw that Lester Balsley said, I think the 200 million per NASAM is for the additional missiles too, so that's a little misleading. But is it really? Because if you buy a NASAMS and it doesn't come with missiles, then you've really just bought a piece of metal that costs however much it does without missiles. So it has to have missiles, so it may as well just be included that each one is going to cost about $2 million for the complete package, the ammunition for it to actually work, and the NASAM so that way the missiles can be fired. But with that, we're now going to be moving down into the area of Pisky, where we saw some Ukrainian heavy mortar fire. Here's the video. Gotta keep it muted though because of the music.
What does it say?
I have no idea. Though we can see them now hanging the round on the mortar, dropping the round, and firing. And with that, that's the end of the video, but it is pretty nice to see that they're still using their mortars in the area and hopefully raining down some fire onto the Russians. With that, we're now going to be moving a little bit further down the front lines into the area of Molnivka, where we saw a poor, terrified dog, but the Ukrainians are taking care of it the best they can. And so with that, here's the video.
Песик, іди сюди. Іди до нас. Іди. Все, не бійся. Іди сюди. Іди сюди. Ну, ввалюють вони. Мені теж страшно. Всім страшно. Лягай. Все, молодець. Ти в нас дама. Гля, як тремтить. Що ти, мала? Капець.
See, the dog's pretty skittish, but it's getting over his fears the best it can.
Ні. Чуєш, боїться як, а? Ага. Все, не бійся. Вон тремтить. Капець як тремтить.
Не бійся. Вони не попадуть.
Все.
Вони дурні.
And with that, that's the end of the video. But it's nice to see the Ukrainians are trying to take care of that dog the best they can, although the poor little thing is scared out of its mind. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that area and down towards the Irikov area, where we saw some Russians being hit by some drone grenades. The typical kind of work that the Ukrainians do on the southern front, just harassing the Russians with some bomblets. And a craftily made one. It's actually a pretty good bomblet. You now see it falling on its way on down to the ground and hitting right behind the Russian position, throwing up a pretty good amount of smoke for the size bomblet they had. They're now dropping the second one and hit directly onto the outpost, sending pieces of it flying all across the field and now setting the ammunition on fire. And with that, that's the end of the video, but pretty interesting to see, and pretty nice to know that the Ukrainians are still laying down some pretty effective drone operations in the area, and making sure to keep the Russians' heads down low or off. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into the Kherson area, where we saw that Ukrainian forces are now on the long road to recovery, and making sure that the area of Kherson is safe for the citizens that are still living there, and trying to clear out mines, explosives, and other things that they're finding in the Kherson city area. And so with that, here's the video, of course, courtesy to Radio Free Europe for providing us with it and letting us take a good look at what they're doing.
За последние дни в Херсоне начала активно работать полиция. Вот это тот самый знаменитый Сиреневый парк. Это то место, где в начале войны херсонская тероборона встретила российских военных.
А здесь в парке лежали наши, просто гражданские люди. Они приехали с зажигательной смесью, с бутылкой на колонну БТР. Да, ну это видно, объявились родственники и сделали мемориал. Вон дерево, там дуб простреленный. Человек тоже пришел, замотал лентой, чтобы сохранить, наверное.
Деоккупированную часть Херсонской области называют одной из самых сложных для работы саперов. Раньше в Киевской или деоккупированной Харьковской области такого, говорят, саперы не было. Причем речь идет даже не о количестве оставленного, а о том, что очень много так называемых минных ловушек. Уже есть жертвы и среди саперов, и среди полицейских, и среди военных.
Ми вже думали, обрадували, що нас з окупованої окупації визволили. Але це було не так втішно, тому що війська російської, вони зайшли на лівий берег, а ми, виходить, на правому рядышком возле Дніпра. І почалися 3 дні сильні обстріли. Ніч мого чоловіка викинула на міни. Добре, що він не розірвався. Він зараз в тяжкому стані. Донечка і старший синочок не ушкоджені. А от середненький був теж в реанімації. А зараз йому краще. Це варвар. Я вам не можу передати, у мене нема слів. Я хочу, щоб наші війська, щоб наші хлопці дали відсіч цим варварам. І все, щоб була вільна наша Україна. Все буде добре, все буде Україна. Я вірю.
And so that's the end of the video, of course, provided by Radio Free Europe, showing us the situation in Kherson and that Ukrainian forces are trying their best to make sure that the town is as safe as possible, although the Russians are on the other side of the Dnieper River, and we have seen them firing into Kherson over the previous week. With that, it's now time for us to move on from all the frontline news and international news from the war in Ukraine today, and it's now time for us to move up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, real quick, before we move on to the speech, I was wanting to ask you all a question about the videos and content that we should make in the future. I actually have a video in the making right now. It did not come out today, but one interesting idea that I was having and I thought would be pretty neat to do is to see about covering international news in my short summary videos like I did on the war in Ukraine today, but make that for international news instead and give small short explanations about things that are going on around the world that we are not able to cover on this stream. If y'all would like for those to be the videos that come out in the future so that way we can broaden the horizon of this channel and what we cover, let us know in the live chat, because I would actually be interested to know if y'all would like that, and if y'all would, we will probably start working in that direction on making short summary videos like that. And so with that, it's now time for us to move on into Kyiv and listen to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 281 of the war in Ukraine. And so without further ado, here is the speech. And let me make sure the subtitles are up there, and here we go.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Провів сьогодні чергове засідання Ставки. Головні питання – Донеччина, Луганщина, Харківщина, Запорізька область, Херсонщина, Крим. Прифронтові території – наш державний кордон. Аналізуємо наміри окупантів, готуємо протидію, ще потужнішу протидію, ніж зараз. Розглянули питання забезпечення військових і постачання нової техніки, боєприпасів. Окремо провів нараду з питань енергетики та зв'язку. Фіксуємо результати того, що вже зроблено для захисту наших систем, готуємо нові рішення. Також готуємо нові рішення, щоб не допустити будь-якої можливості Росії маніпулювати внутрішнім життям України. У свій час деталізуємо і це. Станом на сьогоднішній вечір близько 6 мільйонів абонентів у більшості областей нашої держави та у Києві відключені від електрики. Ситуація залишається дуже складною саме в столиці, а також на Київщині, у Вінницькій, Львівській, Одеській, Хмельницькій і Черкаській областях. Енергетики та комунальники, наші всі служби роблять все, щоб стабілізувати систему і дати людям більше енергії на довгий час. І я ще раз хочу підкреслити, дуже важливо, щоб люди розуміли, коли і на який проміжок часу у них відключать електрику. Це відповідальність як самих енергокомпаній, так і місцевої влади. Люди мають право знати. І наскільки це можливо зараз, має бути забезпечена передбачуваність життя. Люди бачать, що в сусідніх будинках чи на найближчих вулицях чомусь інші правила щодо світла. А має бути справедливість і зрозумілість. Сьогодні маємо дві дуже важливі міжнародні новини. Канада успішно завершила розміщення спеціальних облігацій суверенної підтримки України. Обсяг 500 мільйонів канадських доларів. Фактично, Канада бере цей борг на себе, щоб допомогти нашій державі. Кошти підуть в державний бюджет України. Я дякую нашим канадським друзям, особисто пану Джастіну Трюдо і пані Христі Фріланд за цей прояв канадського лідерства. Лідерство, яке демонструє іншим партнерам, що може бути ефективним саме зараз для підтримки України. І новина з Німеччини. Бундестаг проголосував за резолюцію, яка визнає Голодомор геноцидом українського народу. Це рішення для справедливості, для правди, і це дуже важливий сигнал багатьом іншим країнам світу, що російському реваншизму не вдасться переписати історію. Ще б одне рішення Німеччини, яке безумовно стане історичним, передати Україні системи Patriot. І пану канцлеру Шольцу, як і всьому поколінню сучасних німецьких політиків, дякуватимуть усі покоління українців. Слава кожній, хто захищає Україну. Дякую усім, хто допомагає нашій державі. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that also wraps up our Day 281 news segment. I thank you all so much once again for watching, and if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and also like the stream, as that helps it to reach more people, and it also helps the Lee Spring Army and the Enforcer channel to continue to grow. And of course, thank you to everyone so much once again for watching the news. It means a lot to me that a load of y'all find this to be a credible source of news, a place to find it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the question segment and answering all of the super chats that have been sent in tonight, all of the polls that we've put up, and also as many live chats as we can. And so with that, let's get to it.
All right, so let's jump right into the polls. And first up, the first one said, do you still think that Putin is bluffing on the tactical nuke threats? It looks like 63% said yes, he has always been bluffing. 15% said not sure, and 22% said no, it is still a last resort. Now, for me, I think it is still a last resort. I would say, honestly, it's a combination of both. He's definitely bluffing right now, but if it came down to him being put out of the government, I think he would use them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I think it is an option that is probably not going to be used. The only instance I can see it being used is if the Ukrainians started to directly threaten Sevastopol. At that point, I could see the Russians actually using nukes, but if the war ended and the Ukrainians took everything but Sevastopol or Crimea, the Crimean Peninsula, I don't think nukes would ever actually seriously be on the table. It would just be a threat beyond that. So it's kind of a mixed answer. I'd have to fall in the middle, because for the most part, it's an idle threat. But in one instance, in one scenario, it probably wouldn't be. And we don't even know if that's true. That may also be an idle threat. We could probably see the Ukrainians take Sevastopol, and then nothing would happen, and they just liberate it. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one says, if China devolves into chaos and Xi is potentially ousted, do you think this will affect the Ukraine war? It looks like 38% said yes, it will have an indirect effect. 22% said yes, it will have a direct effect. 25% said no, it will have zero effect. And 16% said not sure. Now on this one, I'm a little unsure, but if I had to go with an option, I would say it will have an indirect effect. It all hinges on if Xi is ousted. We don't know what a upcoming leader might think about the Ukraine war. They might take a more active stance on it. It looks like Xi's kind of stood by and stood on the sidelines at this point and waited to see what was going to happen. But it's sort of unclear at this point because it's just evolving so fast. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it will probably, I don't really think it would have an effect because the Ukrainians are not, the Chinese are not really in support of Russia in this war and haven't supplied them with any arms. If anything, the only country we know that supports Russia with arms or any kind of actual aid is North Korea, and that support has been incredibly limited at that. So I think that if Xi died, nothing would really change as far as the Ukraine war. However, one thing I did just see that was interesting is Jiang Zemin, who used to be a very important person in China, of course, as the Associated Press news, who guided China's economic rise. He would be the one who kind of triumphed the idea of quasi-capitalism in China and allowed for special economic regions or special economic zones like Shanghai to exist, which really started to make China explode and really brought them into what the modern world is. But interestingly enough, he just died in the middle of all of this unrest. Now, that's kind of a little bit interesting to me. I can't really say much about it, but kind of a little interesting that when China starts to explode pretty much over there, if you've been looking at the news, it's exploding for one of a million reasons, and it's really exploding over everything that's ever happened, that one of the most important people to modern China has died. So of course, I'm just saying that's kind of weird that they happen at the same time. I'm not going to get into any conspiracy theories or anything there, but if Xi was ousted, oh hell, I don't even know what would happen if Xi was ousted, because he is, just to explain Chinese politics real quick, the Chinese Communist Party is not the only party in China. China is usually called a one-party nation, but it's not. There's actually a couple of other smaller parties, Chinese political parties. You can actually see that there's a couple of them. You can see the Chinese Communist Party, of course, the ruling party. You can actually see the China Zhigong Party, the Chinese Peasants and Workers Democratic Party, the China Democratic League, the Zhishuan Society, the China National Democratic Construction Association, the China Association for Promoting Democracy, the Taiwan Democratic Self-Governance League, and the Revolutionary Committee of the Chinese Kuomintang. And I don't really think, wait a minute, hang on. Oh, so apparently Taiwan actually has representation to a very small degree in the National People's Congress, which is really weird. But anyways, really quick, they don't actually have just one party. They actually have multiple of them. But one thing you'll probably notice here is that all of them are Chinese socialists. So it's really only a difference on paper. These parties may as well just be giving the idea that there's any kind of, I guess you could say, choice, but there really isn't much of one. Also, I like this one. It says it's promoting democracy, but it's a Chinese Socialist Party like the Chinese Communist Party, which is kind of a little funny, I like how everyone's pointing that out. They're like, oh, LOL, it's like, it's saying it's promoting democracy. But this is what the Chinese government looks like. The only problem with this, though, is that while they have different parties, I guess you could say, that could take the plate, that's not really the case. The Chinese Communist Party and the way the Chinese government is structured is that the Chinese Communist Party is the government. The government is really just an extension of the party. The party isn't an extension of any kind of government apparatus. So if Xi was ousted, I don't know what that would mean for the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, I guess the party would oust him and they would install a new guy of the same party? Would that really win over the Chinese public? I don't really know. But still, it's kind of interesting to think about. I wonder what kind of effect that would have on Chinese internal politics if that was the case. But anyways, with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next poll, and it hasn't had a long time. So real quick, man, do you have anything to add to this?
So I don't have anything to add to that, but we can go ahead and address a super chat question.
All right, so let's hear a super chat question real quick.
All right, and the first one goes to Fly Eagles Fly, who is a channel legend who puts in a $25 donation and says, for the cause, Eagles are 10-1 this season. The only thing in the world with a better offense is the Ukrainian army.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support, Fly Eagles Fly, and that is incredibly true. The only thing in the world with a better offense is the Ukrainian army. They also have a very strong defense as well. And also, I just noticed, I know that this is a really sideshow thing, but the armrest on my chair, Matthew, is like almost about to fall off. It's like wobbling so hard that if you hear a loud sound, that's the armrest falling off. But
Damn.
getting back on to this, that is actually pretty interesting here. I'm not a big football guy, but I know you are because your actual profile name and picture is about the Eagles. And so I'm glad to hear that they're doing pretty good. And also, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. We rely on y'all support a whole load. Without it, it's not possible to run this channel. So I got to thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this thing running and also letting us know about how the Eagles are doing and also giving Ukraine a very nice compliment. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I would actually be into, now this is a bomb. This is kind of like a scary thing. It could be like a bomb on this channel. We could end up getting obliterated by YouTube, but it would be interesting to talk about China in depth. But in case if y'all don't know about a certain channel, which I'll pull up on my second screen and then show to y'all as a bit of an example. Let me go here. Let me go here. Let's see.
Just got done watching a pretty large YouTube channel today that put out a video about China and the CCP, and they didn't have a shadow ban, I don't think.
Well,
they had 500,000 subs.
What channel was it?
Business something news.
Business Insider. Oh wow, that's loud. But let me drag this over here to y'all real quick, and let me show y'all something interesting. This channel is China Uncensored. I don't know if we're even going to get in trouble showing them, but they are on the platform. They have 1.82 million subscribers, which is a very high amount. You know, of course, me being here with only about 107,000 subscribers, you know, it's a huge channel compared to us. And if you look at them, you'll notice that a lot of their videos hardly get any views compared to their subscriber amount. This one got 95,000 views. And you can also see that some of them do get on up there, like 343,000, 452,000, but some of them are only getting 152,000. Under 10% of their subscriber base is watching these videos. And the main reason being is that they got shadow banned. You can actually see right here, popular episodes around 8 years ago and even up to 4 years ago, they were getting millions of views a video because they weren't shadow banned, so YouTube was actually promoting them to the entirety of their audience and people were watching them. But, you know, YouTube has kind of started to move in a little bit of a different direction these days, and because of that, they don't really like anyone to be anti-Chinese, and so they start to shadow ban people, and that's what you can see, is that the views just drop off into nothing, and no one's able to watch it because no one even hears about it. So we want to be very careful with this kind of stuff, and it's really something I would love to cover, but at the same time...
I think the bag's already in for the channel when it comes to the shadow ban.
What, on this one?
Yeah, because it seems like our last video did not do well at all.
The last video didn't do well. Honestly, none of our videos that we've uploaded over the past month and a half have done well. Matthews have gotten 34 and 35,000 a piece, and those are some of the best videos we've put out over the past 2 months. But the problem is that that's about half of what we used to do months before that. A normal video would have gotten 60, 70,000 views. Some of them got all the way up to 250,000, but now we hardly get views on anything. Like, looking at the video I put up a little while ago, it's only gotten 10.2 thousand views. This stream only has 4,000 people watching right now, and at its peak tonight, it had 5,343. And normally, you know, and just going through all of this, because I think we have been shadow banned, and I'm going to just go over the analytics so you can see how much of a drop we've taken over the past 2 weeks. Normally, the stream would have gotten up to 7,000, 7.5 thousand viewers, and then we would have had about, at this point in the stream, about 5.3 thousand people on watching the question segment, and it would slowly diminish down to around 4,000 or so by the end of it. And I think it's because not a lot of people are getting told that these streams are running anymore, getting the notifications for them, because this has become permanent. Over the past 2 weeks, the viewership has remained the exact same, and we're hardly gaining subscribers. You know, it's So, you know, just going to be honest with you all about what we're seeing in the background, we're hardly gaining subscribers. We've only gotten, I believe, 720 subscribers over the past 30 days, when usually every other month we would get 4,000 on average, and we've now gotten down to 700 or so. So it looks like we have been shadow banned. It's just that, though, we've already been shadow banned for something, apparently. And covering this with the whole China thing, you know, and I would like to say this with, you know, just trying to be on the bright side of things, but they'll probably start hitting us with community guideline strikes at that point, because now we're just going against the grain on everything, and they don't really like what we're doing, and then we can't do Ukraine, we can't do China, we just cease to exist. So it's kind of a little bit of an interesting thing, really, that we kind of have already been shadow banned. That's why I've been trying to encourage y'all a lot over the past 2 weeks to share us on social media and other platforms, so that way people can still know about us, because apparently YouTube isn't going to let anyone know that we exist anymore. So we really just rely on the viewers to tell people that we're around here. So with that, you know, that's really what we're looking at. It's kind of a little unfortunate. We're still trying to power through it. As y'all can see, we're still on here every single day and covering this news. And also, some people are asking what a shadow ban is. A shadow ban is an unofficial mark against a channel like ours. If YouTube doesn't really like what you're putting out, they quietly, they don't even tell you, they don't even really tell anyone, but they quietly put a damper on all of your analytics. Like today, I'll go over here real quick and tell y'all something. I'll let y'all go through the whole YouTube analytics thing with me, so that way y'all know that I'm not talking out my rear end. Because this is something you can see on other videos on this channel, but I'm not going to go into the massive rabbit hole of explaining all of it. I'll just tell you what we're looking at with the video we got today. So, the video is called Very Clever Ukrainian Soldier Destroyed Another Tank, the Enforcer Short War Summary, Day 281. If I go and look at the analytics on this, it's gotten a like rate of 99.4%, one of the highest like rates we've gotten recently on a video. So that's quite good, and it would promote it to other people. We got only 51.1 thousand impressions and a click-through rate of 14%. Now, 14% is incredibly good in the YouTube world, and the like ratio is quite good as well. And if you look at the engagement, it says that the average view duration is 1 minute and 46 seconds, which is exactly 70% of the video's length. All of those things combined analytically should mean that the impressions would skyrocket, and that would be a trending video. But for some reason, YouTube isn't promoting it. They're not giving it impressions. It's just sitting there, although it has everything. That video has everything analytically for it to blow up and be promoted to everyone in the world, but they aren't promoting it, and we don't know why. We got copyright strikes before. They were completely baseless. We got one appealed. One sat around until November 28th because they would never accept our appeal, and then it finally lifted, and now it's like we've been shadow banned. So, it's kind of bizarre. You know, it's really bizarre to me, because, you know, I'm going off the exact same principle, the exact same formula for making that video that I put up today that I would have months ago when I was making those short summaries every single day of the week. And those videos on average would get 60,000, 70,000 views, and this one's only gotten 10.2 thousand views over the course of hours at this point. It's been up for, let me go check the dashboard. It's been up for 6 hours at this point, and it's actually one of my worst performing videos now. It's actually doing worse than some of even my worst videos over the past 2 months, and it's really weird, you know. And that's why I'm asking y'all to, like, subscribe, to hit the like button, to share this with friends, because, you know, apparently YouTube isn't going to support us anymore. They're just allowing us to exist at this point. But anyway,
and also, I plan on making videos reviewing guns and things like that in the future. And I know the Enforcer's worried that might have an effect on the channel as well, because YouTube reportedly doesn't like gun content, although I see a lot of popular gun channels out there. But if that is the case and it might hurt the channel, I'll probably just end up putting it on the Enforcer Matt channel that I used to comment on the stream probably.
Well, interestingly enough, there's a decent amount of channels that do make it covering gun content, but if you notice, Matthew, those channels existed before YouTube really got around to this whole new way of doing things, and so they didn't want to rock the cash cow that a lot of those gun channels are, and so they allowed them to exist, but they crush anyone new that's trying to enter that category, because, you know, they're trying to get rid of that by and large. And also, another interesting thing is that Mr. Beast, you know, one of the biggest YouTubers out there, and I know you've watched his I guess you could say his interviews, he actually did some gun content way early on in his channel, like how many magnets stops a bullet and stuff like that. He did a lot of content like that, and then those were some of his most viral videos at the time, and he had to stop doing it because, one, it started to decrease his analytics, and two, no sponsors would sponsor his YouTube channel because it had gun-related content on it, and sponsors were really touchy about that kind of stuff. So, you know, it kind of, the whole platform at this point, you know, I hate to say this because it sounds like I'm just whining. The whole YouTube platform seems to have just dropped us off the face of the earth, and we're just kind of soldiering on along. So, you know, if you want to support the channel, just watching helps us out a lot. But anyways, with that, it's now time for me to stop talking about that. I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we did address the question, also addressed what's going on behind the scenes and what we've been looking at. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, real quick, let's go ahead and address this poll. Do you think China will collapse and undergo a revolution? 57% said no, the CCP will crush the opposition. 24% said not sure. And 20% said yes, the CCP will not regain control. Now, here's what I think about this. I don't see Xi leaving. I also don't see him being ousted either. I think we might be seeing a Tiananmen Square 2.0 coming in the future, because China is not going to let these people continue to be out of control. And they're using all kinds of technology to get them under control, like facial recognition. And I think they're going to get a grip on it here pretty quickly. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, the party will crush the opposition. It's just how it is. They did that in Tiananmen. Well, we really can't say that. I got to catch myself before I say that. They crushed them before historically. They'll probably do it again, because they're no strangers to putting something like that down. That's something they've done a lot historically. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well. I almost fell right into the pitfall of something that would probably get us a guideline strike, talking about that one specific event.
I just said it. It didn't do anything.
Well, I mean, you know, I want to make sure we don't do that twice, because if we do it doubly, maybe they'll get us doubly. I don't know. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so moving back to our Super Chat questions. Up next, we have a $10 Super Chat from Junebug72, who says, hi, and take a question from the live chat, please. Have a good evening, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on going. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and the one from the live chat goes to Ken Brown, who says, Enforcer, what would happen if a non-NATO country attacked Russia on its southern border, for example, Kazakhstan?
If Russia attacked a country on the southern border, or if a southern border country attacked them?
If a non-NATO country attacked Russia on its southern border?
I don't really think much would happen, and also I believe Kazakhstan military size. I don't think Kazakhstan has a big military. Across the armed forces of Kazakhstan, they only have 108,000 active personnel, which is minute in size. It's also using nothing but old Soviet equipment, so it wouldn't really fare well. If Kazakhstan tried to attack Russia, that may actually be something Russia is able to quash fairly easily, considering that the Kazakhs will only have about 20,000 active troops to be able to attack the Russians with. And so I don't think that would really result in much, rather than the Kazakhstanis being steamrolled or the Georgians being steamrolled, because those are really the only two countries that could pull it off, and Mongolia is too neutral to really do anything. And so with that, I hope that addresses the question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 Super Chat from Rad Doctor, who says, what courses are you guys taking in college currently? And I'll say for me real quick, I'm taking all political science courses right now. I didn't necessarily get to pick them because I've already taken all my core classes, so I kind of had them already pre-selected. So I'm having to take a couple classes I'm not really interested in, sadly. And it's making it really hard to write the final papers, too. But that's what I'm doing, and I just have one semester left. So, Enforcer, what about you?
I have also one semester left, and I have a Earth Science class, a couple of history classes, French film history, which is probably one of the more weirder histories I've taken. You know, like when I thought I was going into history, I had the idea that it would be more, I guess you could say, deeper things than film history. I thought it would be things like maybe the history of High Germany in the 1500s, the late Renaissance, or something similar like that. But French film history, it's the content is interesting, and the class is interesting, and the films you have to watch are interesting, but it's not really the kind of history I wanted to learn about. The other history class I'm taking is the War in the Pacific class, which is really interesting. I love that class. I already knew a decent amount of the War of the Pacific going into the class, but it's also added an extra level of detail, especially the books that we have to read. Some of them I haven't heard about, and they're actually really detailed, and went over the life of a Korean during Japanese occupation, went over the life of a Marine during the Battle of Peleliu and also Okinawa, which also was adapted into a TV series that I watched after I read the book, because the book was just so good. And it's that's a really interesting class. The other class I have, the other history one, is the history of modern China. And interesting class. It's actually taught by a Chinese professor, but what's really interesting about it is that you read books, first-hand accounts of Chinese people that lived in China during certain historical periods, some of them modern, and the stuff you read is truly bizarre. I can't really, you know what, since we've already pretty much been shadow banned, I'm going to do it this one time and just speak unfiltered. I actually had to read in one of the books that because of the I guess you could say the Cultural Revolution in China in the 60s, that these young women went around called the Red Guard along with some young men, and they started the revolution in China. They would beat up people who paid for first-class tickets and train cars. They would beat the hell out of them for being in the train car, and then put poor people in that train, in like that cab in the railroad car, although the other people paid the full price for the ticket, and some of these other people were literally riding like the cargo hold of the train. Had to read about people getting beat to death with belt buckles because they, just got tired of it or something and were speaking out against it. It was really bizarre to read, and the way it was kind of put was that it wasn't anything that was unfortunate or anything like that. It was just a complicated time in the history of the country, and that, they were just trying to learn their footing. So, we just went around committing atrocities all over the place, and that was just how it was. It's interesting to me how the class is kind of written out, because you can even see some stuff that's happening in modern China. Like in one book it literally said China is a multicultural country, which is a weakness, and it really needs to become a monocultural society to actually be strong. And with what's going on in Western China, you could see that that's really the sentiment of modern China and what they're doing, and they're talking about that was the weakness of the Qing dynasty in the 1840s. It's a really interesting class to read, because a lot of stuff that is one way in college, when you read in Chinese history, it's just like, oh, this is how it is, it's just the way it has to be, and you're like, huh, that's kind of weird, even on just a what?
Enforcer, YouTube's trying to break my kneecaps.
What do you mean?
I'm playing. Get the joke.
Oh, well, I was okay. Anyways,
okay, I took that so serious.
Well, yeah, I was in the middle of a monologue right there, and now I'm thrown off. So with that, I guess I'll have to leave that at what it was. And with that, we are on to the next one.
It was a rabbit hole anyway. but anyways, moving on to our next one. We have a $20 super chat from Joseph M. Seco, who says, Totoro, funny you're talking about Mr. Beast, because another story, I think the U.S. doesn't want to use SMALs because we have thousands of launchers and hundreds of thousands of rockets, so saving them in case anyone attacks us.
And thank you so much for the support, Joseph Sicko. Now you changed it to Sicka. But I thank you so much once again for the support. And also, the U.S. doesn't want to use because we have, so saving them in case anyone. Pretty interesting to hear. I didn't know that those were even standard used a lot. But pretty interesting nonetheless. I know you're a huge fan of the SMAL, and so if anyone would know about that, it would be you. And so I thank you so much once again for the support, and also giving us that little additional bit of information to go with. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for helping this channel out and helping us to keep going. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Cam Kettner, who says, hope not a repeat. Iranians mocked their government and cheered loss to U.S. Also, Also, Ayatollah's niece said that her uncle runs a murderous and child-killing regime on YouTube. Her dad hated theocrats, Caesar of 79 revolution.
And I thank you so much once again for the support. I don't think we can go into evil. Well, I don't know. I don't really know. I don't really know how to comment too much on the in part about Iran. I would have to look into that a little bit more honestly to comment on it, so that way I could get a little bit more information on it. But Iran is not really doing well right now, and it's starting to show specifically internationally. It looks like there's a lot of fractures that are happening in Iran at this point. Probably so many that it's going to be very difficult for them to deal with them all, or at least patch them up and survive. So with that, I thank you so much for the support and also sharing that with us. And with that, I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Konstantino Stetsiuk, who says, can you guys add your entrance video, Russian warship Ida Nahui?
I would like to do that about the Russian warship Go F Yourself, but that might start lengthening the intro a little bit too much. We already put in the LSA sends disregard intro, and that made it a pretty decent bit longer by like 45 seconds. So I don't really think we want to make it too much longer than that, but it is a pretty neat video and a historic one at that. It's really the beginning of the whole entire war as far as the international world was concerned. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again. Also, Ben F, no, we're not really allowed to talk about that truthfully on YouTube.
All right. So up next, we have a $10 super chat from Chip Kerwan, who says, in 1997, Russia and Ukraine signed the Partition Treaty, establishing two independent nation fleets and dividing armaments and bases between them. When did Russia stop paying rent?
Actually, from what I've understood and how I read it, they just kind of had port basing rights there by default. They would maintain their own naval infrastructure there, but beyond that, they didn't really have to pay rent. It was just something of a diplomatic agreement. If there is literature out there that shows different, I'll try and look into it and read it and see about giving you a really good answer to that question. But right now, I wouldn't know if Russia had to pay rent or not, because from what I knew, it was an agreement in between Ukraine and Russia and that their fleet could stay there, and they weren't really having to pay for it. They were just having to maintain their own base there. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well based off of the knowledge I got right now. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this channel going and helping to keep the lights on in the background.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat once more from Joseph M. Seco. He doesn't leave a comment this time, but Joseph, thank you once again for that support, and we do appreciate it very much. And also, thank you for being a longtime channel viewer as well. Then up next, we have a $10 super chat from Ole Wilansky, who says, for dog treats for the pups, you have two. And yes, we do. And that will help us buy another bag of those, what are they called, flower bones from Sam's, I think?
I think so.
Yes, they love those.
And of course, thank you so much for the support and also helping us to get some dog treats. The corgis love the dog treats. They really love any food, especially Sheba. She eats anything. So we'll make sure to get them some dog treats and make sure that they can enjoy them. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $7 super chat from Jarrett Moshenko, who says, Slava Ukraine from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. The Aurora are dancing in the skies tonight.
Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. Where would that
Of
be?
America?
Goodness gracious. You're on up there, aren't you? Good lord. That is like in the middle of nowhere. That literally is the middle of nowhere. Golly, I didn't know we had people watching from the freaking wilderness. Let's go. Do they have street view? They do, in every street. What's this place look like? It's actually really nice. This is insane. You're in the middle of the literal frontier. And this is a nice town, too. This is wild, man. I didn't even know that. Like, I thought, honestly, when I saw that you said you were from Yellowknife and we saw where it was, I thought I was about to drop down here and see something that looked frontier-like in terms of its infrastructure and what the town looked like, but it's nice. I'm actually shocked. And I gotta thank you so much for the support, and also, super cool to hear that you can actually see the Aurora Borealis all the way here from Yellowknife in the middle of the Northwest Territories. That's really cool, I gotta say. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and also letting us take a look at your hometown of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. And I hope you've been enjoying the Aurora Borealis tonight, because I've never seen it, but maybe someday I'll be able to. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I'm seeing a ton of people say they want to see the corgis on video, and that's a really good idea for a freestanding video, by the way. So we'll have to make a note of that one. I'm sure the corgis would love it. But anyways, real quick, to circle back to a comment from Joseph M. Seco, he actually left a comment, but of course YouTube screwed it up and didn't attach it to his message. So he said, I left a comment. When they came over from Italy to Ellis Island, it was Sika, and the wrote down an O, and it was called Sicko. It's actually Sika, but I like Seek.
Well, thank you so much for the support once again, Joseph M. Sika. I actually didn't know that, and well, of course I did know that one, but that is actually pretty neat. Also, you see Ellis Island right there, which is now a museum, and it's really weird, because if you actually ever saw Ellis Island on a map before they started building this thing up, it was like a small little island over here, and then they built this one into a rectangle, then made another rectangle and connected the two of them with an even smaller rectangle. And I don't believe it had a bridge at that time. I think it was just an island in the middle of, I guess you could say, what is actually this called? The Upper Bay. It was just an island in the middle of the Upper Bay. But that is really cool to hear that you actually had a last name change. I would talk about our last name and how it changed, but if I tell y'all my last name, in case y'all don't know it, then, you know, stalkers out there can get a whole load of info on me. So sadly, I can't really talk about mine, but we had something similar happen, and I can't really go into anything further than that. But I thank you so much once again for the support, Joseph M. Sika, and also letting us know that. And also, what's really cool about New York, this is really neat. No one ever talks about Governor's Island, but it's got a fort in the middle of it, Fort J. And in case y'all didn't know, Staten Island also had a fort on it. I guess it's Fort Wood. Yeah, Fort Wood right there. And they built the Statue of Liberty on top of it. They filled the thing in with concrete. And that's where the Statue of Liberty sits on. It's really weird to think that, because, you know, the pedestal was actually a small star fortress that protected New York City from ships sailing on up the bay and trying to attack the town. And that's also what Fort J was for as well. And then there's a really cool island that no one ever talks about, which is Rikers Island, which is a massive prison on an island, like Alcatraz, but on steroids. Which is just really neat. I never actually knew where New York City's prisons were. I was like, are they in the middle of the city? You know, like, and I was like, that is crazy, because if someone broke out, you're literally in the middle of New York City. I didn't know that they actually had a whole island over here until like a few months ago, where they kept all of these prisoners. And also, it's a huge prison. I mean, like, if you look at the size of that thing compared to Manhattan, I would guess that like 10% of Manhattan's population lives in Rikers Island, just from the size of the thing. Of course, that's just a joke, though. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for letting us know about that. A little fun fact about your family history and your name, and also letting us take a look at New York City. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says, please take a moment to look up Machine Gun America. As a gun enthusiast, are the packages worth it? Russia will lose Crimea. Putin won't die over it.
Machine Gun America. Machine Gun America. It's an Orlando shooting attraction. Our experiences. So let's see. For $150, you get to shoot what? This is a ripoff. Okay, real quick. This is actually a ripoff. $150 to shoot 3 of these guns, 25 rounds apiece, is an absolute ripoff. I've gone to one place where you could shoot an MP5, an entire magazine from an MP5, 30 rounds for $25. And so it's completely a ripoff for $150 to shoot 3 of these guns. None of those guns and their ammunition are even that expensive to warrant that kind of cost. And if we go over here, you can see that you get 25 rounds on this package for $170. And all this stuff we got to offer too. I'll actually show you a place you need to go if you want to do something like that in Alabama. If I find Lake Martin. This is a pretty cool place. I got to find it real quick though. Where is it? So, let's see, Lake Martin. Yeah, I think it was around here. Lake Martin machine gun. It's right here, actually. This tiny little building right here. It looks like a shack in the woods. It is a shack in the woods. But you can actually go here and you can shoot all kinds of automatic guns. They have them all here. This right here is a 1919 that's set up to shoot. And they have a myriad of guns. That's actually an MG3. That right there, I forgot which one that is, but oh, and I think that's the M249. That's the 50 cal. I've shot that one. That's the 1919. They also have a load of other guns you can shoot. Let me see if I can find some of them. Right here, right here. They have the original gangster Tommy gun. They have the M1 Tommy gun, a Sten gun, and an MP40. I've shot that thing. It's like a sewing machine. They have the automatic, I believe that's the XM. I forgot what it is. It's like the XM something. They have the MP5. You can shoot all of these for $25. You can shoot the big machine guns for $50. So I would certainly not pay that much money to do something like that. That's almost a total ripoff. I would just go somewhere like this, where you can shoot each one for $25 and then the big ones for $50. With the 50 cal though, you only get 10 shots for $50 because each shot's like $3.50 a round, and they still have to make money. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. I would not go and do that. That's just a straight up ripoff in terms of its price. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have another super chat from Joseph M. Sicca, who puts in a $20 donation this time. He says, I think I told you my great-grandfather started the oldest pizza joint in Boston, back in 1903, called Santarpio's Pizzeria, still family run today, and no one know this, but it was Santarpio's, not Santarpio's.
Interesting. Let's see if we can actually pull that up. Santarpio's pizza.
Santarpio's.
It's Santarpio's. As he said,
in Boston.
In Boston. Family-owned spot for New York City-style bice. What's you on about, honey? Anyways, let's go take a look at it. So it looks like that a building has had some changes, but it's probably been in the same spot the whole time. Look at that, man. They're selling some pretty high-end looking stuff here at this place. Why in the world does all the food look better everywhere but here? You know, like there's actual like effort put into food out there. Maybe we're not eating at the right places here.
They have like a nice choreographed picture of a Coors Light.
Wait, let me go back to that. Yeah, it's just a Coors Light.
Could I have some Coors?
I don't even know anything about them really, but Supreme, that actually looks pretty good. And then you have a sosog and some bread. I mean, honestly, this looks like a pretty nice place to eat.
Oh man, that New York pizza, that Northern pizza, I would love to try that because all we have had down here is Papa John's and Pizza Hut, and I hate Pizza Hut with a passion, but Papa John's is the best thing we have. So I would love to go to New York just to try that pizza.
Honestly, I would like to give it a shot. It looks really good, and also that looks cheesy. And I really like my pizzas to have more cheese on them than sauce, because the sauce is good, but you always want to make sure you can actually taste the cheese. Otherwise, you're just eating like tomato sauce bread. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Mr. Sicca, and also allowing us to take a look at your family-owned establishment, or at least someone in your family owns it, of Santarpio's Pizza in Boston. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to stay alive and also allowing us a pretty cool look at Boston. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, you know there's such thing as a tomato pie, right?
I do. And I'm about to show you something that will blow your mind. Chicago style pizza. This right here is a Chicago style pizza.
Oh yeah, that deep dish.
The pie. They call it a pizza pie. The stuff looks like lasagna. It looks okay, but at that point, you may as well just eat lasagna, you know, because it looks like lasagna.
It looks good, though. Like, I'm starving right now, too, so anything looks good.
This looks good until I start making jokes about it and Al Capone, and then it won't look good. Also, what the hell? That's just a burnt pizza. Wait, it's taking us to a website. Show us the burnt pizza. Are you kidding? That is a burnt pizza, man. They took a picture of a burnt pizza.
It's $100. You can order this for $150 to your house. That burnt pizza.
Oh boy, I love the taste of charcoal, of pizza flavored charcoal. I love it. Oh
Wait
my.
a minute. So 150 divided by 4, that's $38 a pizza for that nasty pizza you see right there in that picture. What in the hell?
Well, hang on there. It actually comes with all of this. That is just burnt. Look at it. Look at it. You can see the normal color of the bread. That's not the color of the bread. That thing is just burnt to all hell. And they're trying to sell it. These people are just straight up stupid. I would never buy this. Like, I feel like if this was a Shark Tank business, the people on Shark Tank wouldn't even eat it because it's so damn burnt. That's just horrendous. That is good lord. That
Wait a minute. Wait, you can buy your pizza with 4 interest-free payments of $38 with Klarna. Who pays for their pizza with an interest like a financing solution?
I'll tell you who. Wannabe financiers, you know, oh yeah, I invested in NFTs and I'm also paying 4 interest-free payments of $37.48 for 4 pizzas. Yeah, at that point, you are literally just paying for each pizza individually over a period of time.
They're going to be like, how much was this pizza? Well, I took out a loan for it.
Wait a minute. The $149 is just for the pizza. To add a shot glass, it's $6. To add a bottle opener, it's $10 for a bottle opener? To add a hat, it's $25? These people are running a ripoff operation. This right here is extortion. I've never seen anything like it. And this is a Ukraine war stream, and this is more horrendous than good lord, than the state of the Russian army. This is, and we're moving on. I can't look at that.
Is this a real site?
It was real. You could actually buy that stuff.
That's wild. I've never heard of that.
Anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right, and next up we have a $5 super chat from White Lightning 777, who says, is the nose landing gear issue a valid reason to delay sending the F-16s or just a cop-out? It seems to be easy to repave a runway.
It's probably a cop-out because the nose gear on an F-16 is, well, on any fighter, is pretty durable compared to really any kind of landing gear because they sometimes have to they have to deal with somewhat higher speeds of landing, and so there's a lot more force on the landing gear struts. So I think that's mostly just, that doesn't make any sense at all, because I was just thinking about that. The Polish are operating F-16s off of Soviet-era runways, and there's no problem there, so I feel like that's mostly a cop-out. But then again, I don't know a lot about aircraft engineering, so take it with a grain of salt, but that's what I'm thinking. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that addresses the question fairly well.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Carolyn Evans, who says, there is an on-the-ground vlogger trying to get a bigger platform. His name is Philip Eitner. I think he should be a guest on the stream. How? He was actually here last night, by the way.
Yeah, he was actually here last night. And I thank you so much for the support. And we have brought guests on before. I would say the best way to expose yourself is to just upload stuff on YouTube regularly. That's usually the best way until you piss YouTube off and then they shadow ban you. And then you're just sitting here like me and just, you know, praying to God that things just keep running. But that would be what I would do. We could try and bring him on. If he would be willing to talk to us on Discord at some point, we might be able to bring him on as a guest at some point, and maybe he can also add in some stuff on what's going on over there, since he is in Kyiv and he's on the ground, like Operator Starsky. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Soul, who says, my first donation. I saw some pictures located in Moscow. They are building bunkers and putting sirens, and love from Sardinia, Italy.
And thank you so much for the support. And also, hello to Sardinia, Italy. Let me go find it. Sardinia, Italy. It's a province, I believe. Yep, it's an island. I'm stupid. I knew it the whole freaking time. It's Corsica and Sardinia. And I forgot that Sardinia was the island. You know, you would think I would know this crap. Like, Napoleon came from Corsica. And, you know, it's anyways, I'm not going to go over that for too long. I feel stupid now. I'm sorry about that. But let's take a look at the biggest town on Sardinia, which is Porto Torres. Also, this is a massive industrial zone that has been abandoned. Like all of the silos are just absolutely empty. That's really weird. Anyways, let's see a look at Porto Torres. Pretty nice all around, especially for an island. For some reason, it reminds me of Portugal a lot. It looks a lot like Portugal. Pretty neat. Let's go look at the countryside of Sardinia, because I don't know if it looks mountainous. It looks rocky, at least. Let's take a look and see if it is. Oh, wow, that's actually really nice. It kind of reminds me of Wales.
Eh.
I think it looks nice.
It looks nice, but not like Wales. Nothing really matches Snowdonia.
I don't know. Let's go look at that and compare. See, we'll go right here and then drop down here.
Whoa.
Yes. The hobbits come out here and they steal your feet. I didn't expect the road to look like that. One second, let me get down here and actually get on a road. A real road. I mean, it looks pretty similar to me.
This looks better.
Piggies. Oh, I mean, those are sheep. Sorry, that looks like a pig back there. Duh. Goofy me calling them sheep. I mean, pigs. Now I'm just screwing everything up, am I? But yeah, I mean, like, I think it looks very similar to Sardinia. But with that, I thank you so much.
You know, that reminds me of have anybody on the stream seen Clarkson's Farm on Amazon Prime?
I haven't.
It's Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear, the Grand Tour. He's doing like a farm series now.
I know who he is, but I've never seen his show.
Oh man, it's so good. There's a second season coming out, and he has sheep. He has like tractors and stuff. He bought a Lamborghini. It's so cool. Y'all ought to watch it.
Didn't he say that if he ever was farming ever in his life, that someone was holding him at gunpoint?
I don't think so.
I swear he said that at one point in Top Gear. Let me pull that up. Jeremy Clarkson will never farm. Let's see.
He's also selling a logger too now, Hawkstone. Wait a minute, it hasn't been canceled. What's that? Click on the first one.
No, it's been renewed for a third season. Also, it looks like 6 days ago he said that farmers don't get paid enough for food, to make the food. So that's interesting. He said the food price should be twice as high. Is he out of his mind? Like,
what is he, nuts? He might be a little out of touch.
Yeah, he might be out of touch. Most people can't afford the food prices going up by 100%. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support and allowing us to take a look at Sardinia. Also, did he have a question in there?
No, I think that was it.
All right, so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support and being a part of the Leaf Spring Army all the way from Sardinia.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat once more from Blue Flam 777, who says, "My pizza pie is Crown. Learned it from Granny. Prove me wrong." Question goes to the chat, and Slava Ukraine.
And thank you so much once again for the support. And also, I don't know what Crown means in terms of pizza, but hopefully that means it's good, because I like good pizza. I'm a big fan of pizza. I think that pizza is like...
It means it's the best.
Oh, cap. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, let's get a question from the live chat.
All right, and the question from the live chat goes to Silver Surfer, who says, "Thoughts on us funding Ukraine for this war? How badly will it affect our own economy in the United States?"
Pretty good question. It doesn't really affect our economy too much. Like, you know, some people, and this, of course, I gotta say this real quick. We're not getting political here, but I am explaining some things that have happened fiscally in the United States. I'm going to make them really quick because, you know, because one thing that makes these explanations right here incredibly long is that I have to disclaim everything. So just know that everything's disclaimed from the start, and I'm just explaining what's happening. So right now, the reason why inflation has gone up is because of the massive spending packages, the stimulus packages that were sent out during COVID that were trillions in size, and somehow we were able to cook the books long enough that it didn't cause rapid inflation at the moment, but a little bit later on, the inflation began to arrive, and it arrived at the rate that you would expect, considering that almost trillions of dollars was literally printed out of thin air. And so that's where the inflation is coming from right now. The support we're sending to Ukraine is not really that big in comparison. The economic damage is going to be quite low, especially considering that most of our equipment that we're sending to Ukraine has been lend-leased. So either the Ukrainians have to pay for it at the end of the war, or they have to send it back to us. So in the end, we didn't really lose much there, giving them any kind of military support. Monetary support, on the other hand, I would view that more so as a long-term economic investment, much like the Marshall Plan of the 50s, when we invested heavily in the Germans, the French, and the British, and their economies began to prosper. We engaged in trade with them because of their prosperous economies, and because of that, everyone in the end would make a pretty good amount of money. And that's kind of what we're hoping to do with Ukraine right now. If they win the war, which, I say if, when they win the war, they will most likely be Western aligned. We can already see that they definitely are Western aligned, and so their economy will begin to flourish, most likely because of our monetary support, and then we'll have a new trade partner. Opens up new markets for America, some new money for America to tap into, and also for the Ukrainians to tap into American money. And so I guess you could say the mutual cycle of trade will begin with them, and it ends up as I guess you could say, economic positive for us in the long run, but a little bit of an economic loss for us in the very short term. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. Also, JP said, the stimulus just gave the government an excuse to get more money from us. Funnily enough, that money was actually printed out of thin air. That was something that they actually started talking about during COVID, is that the U.S. has come up with a new fiscal spending, well, actually not fiscal, a new spending policy just coming up with the money. Like, the money didn't come from taxpayers or foreign lending or anything. We literally just started to print up the money and then hand it out, which was a very bad decision, because as soon as I heard that, I was like, isn't that what Zimbabwe did? Just started printing money, and then it became just completely worthless because it just kept printing the stuff. And that's kind of what we did right there. Hopefully that doesn't...
And both parties did it. It's not just the Republicans or the Democrats. Both of them did it.
Yeah, and that's kind of scary, is that both parties partook in this. So hopefully that doesn't become the normal trend, because we can already see that the current party in charge has actually done that, not just with COVID, but they also put out a massive $1 trillion transportation bill. And, it's great and all, it's great to improve the infrastructure, but at the same time, it's starting to look like both of them have set a precedent where they're literally just going to start printing up the money and then paying people with it. And that will eventually debase and devalue our currency to a point that inflation, at the rate we're seeing it right now, might become a little bit commonplace. And so that's something that I'm actually, that should be spearheaded immediately. It should be something that's addressed in both parties, is that this kind of willy-nilly just come up with the money and give it to people kind of policy needs to stop right now. That was some weird crap that happened during COVID, but that doesn't need to be a normal way of governance during any administration, because both of them have already done it. We can see now that it may start becoming a precedent that everyone's just the party of giving, and they give something they can't even give. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for support, and I hope we addressed that question fairly well.
All right. And y'all know that troll from earlier is still here. I just put their name in the chat just out of sheer coincidence, and I saw they're still here. So the troll hasn't given up, although they can't chat now.
Which one?
And y'all know it's let's see, Sleepy Crane.
Oh man, I don't know what they did or said, but I've seen some interesting ones. Like someone said, he just loves to go on and on and on, and it's like, well, it's what the show is, I think that's what makes it interesting, is when we talk about different things. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up excuse me, up next we have a $5 super chat from President Evil, who says, what is the point of having a deep sea port if you have no fleet? Russian Navy will always be lame duck.
And I thank you for the support. The Russians still do have a fleet, although it's lost some very significant ships, or they've been heavily damaged. But that is true. And by the end of this war, we may see that the fleet's so small that it may as well be integrated into the northern fleets, or have one of the northern fleets move south and reinforce the Black Sea fleet. Regardless, that is a pretty good point, and also a pretty good joke about how badly the Russians are doing. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the question, well, the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And also, just real quick, because I had mentioned it, somebody said, what is PPP? That's the Paycheck Protection Program that literally, it seems like most everybody in America ripped off during the whole COVID thing. Like all the, basically, I don't know what the statistic was. It was like a humongous majority of the money went to people basically scamming the system. And that was such a shame because it was a whole bunch of money. I can't remember how much, but it was a ton.
It was a lot.
But
and
yeah,
also,
it was a lot.
Also, I see some people. What's interesting? I would love to make videos on this because I don't really feel it's political. It's just explaining how the American government works. JC said most farmers take government handouts. That's true. The U.S. government actually subsidizes a lot of farmers in the United States, and we also pay them sometimes to destroy their crops and not grow them because if we allow those crops to go to market, the price of the crops becomes so cheap that the farmers don't even make money growing the food. They lose money growing the food and doing their job. So we actually end up subsidizing a lot of them and paying a lot of them to either not grow crops or to leave fields fallow or to destroy their crops, which is really interesting. There's actually, believe it or not, a lot of people think that the government is not heavily involved in a lot of how this nation runs, but the government actually subsidizes heavily a whole load of stuff. The airline industry as it is in the United States it would cease to exist if government subsidies stopped being paid into it. They would go into the red and they would just lose money until they went bankrupt and defunct. And it's bizarre to think about things like that because the US government takes tax dollars from the taxpayer, and then they use those taxes to then pay companies to operate. And and some people are like, why would they do that? But I got to say this in their defense: if they didn't subsidize those airliners, how would you visit your family on Thanksgiving or go abroad? Because there wouldn't be any way to do it because there wouldn't be a company out there that could actually take you anywhere. They also did that way back in the day with railroads. That was one of the first things that they would subsidize are the railroad companies because it's transportation in those regards is national security, national importance. And so they have to keep these things running. They have to keep the trains running, the planes flying, because if they don't and they need them one day, they're not there at all. So it's kind of interesting with that. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from CA Lags, who says, if Ukraine cuts off Crimea's water, Russia won't be able to hold it anyway, especially if the Kerch Bridge is compromised.
And I thank you for the support. And can you reread that one again?
If Ukraine cuts off Crimea's water, Russia won't be able to hold it anyway, especially if the Kerch Bridge is compromised.
I would agree with that. If the Ukrainians did cut off the Russians from water supply again in Crimea, that could probably lead them to being forced out, or they would start a freshwater transport program into Crimea, but they would probably ration heavily the amount of fresh water people got. Either way, that is a really good point, and I think that may be something that the Ukrainians might want to look into doing, although they would probably end up, by collateral, making a lot of civilians either thirst or die from thirst. So I don't know if that would be something they'd want to do, considering that the scale of the atrocities committed on civilians may be incredibly large, but that is a pretty interesting point. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from KVist84, who says, first time super thanks, Denmark time, loved the tour show, and been following for some time.
And thank you so much once again for the support. Of course, we rely on the supporters to keep this channel running. We don't make any ad revenue. And so I thank you so much once again. And I also thank you for enjoying our look around Denmark. I'd love to look at every country in the world because it's always just interesting to see how people live in these other places. And I think that was really cool to see how nice Copenhagen looked all around. It was a really nice place. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Thank you for enjoying our look around your hometown. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Janosik, who says, hello from Germany, and please answer a question from the chat and have a look at the monument to the Battle of Nations at Leipzig, Germany.
Leipzig, Germany, the Battle of Nations. This was an incredibly cool battle that occurred in Leipzig. It occurred in amongst pretty much the entirety of the coalition and Napoleon. Napoleon actually ended up being defeated at Leipzig by and large, but it's really interesting. Anyways, they have a massive train station as well. It's one of, I believe, one of the largest in Germany, if I'm correct. But let me see if I can find the monument. What's a panometer? Huh, they got the World Trade Centers in here.
Oh.
I don't understand. Germany, please explain. I don't understand. Like, why is that there? Also, is that the wreck of the Titanic? Is that a replica of the Titanic or something?
It's glowing like a nuclear reactor, like the Cherenko effect.
Raise the power. Also, a massive honeybee.
Damn. What the hell is that?
It's a replica honeybee.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Let's see here. I need to find this thing. The monument to the Battle of Nations. See, most of the battle would occur in the south for the most part. But let me just type it in. Monument to the Battle of Nations. Oh, crap! Oh, crap! I remember now. This was actually turned into, I believe, a Nazi memorial at some point, and then the Germans actually fought for it inside the monument. I believe I actually watched a Mark Felton episode on this. But it's a huge monument. It's also very impressive on the inside. And if we look at it here, if the graphics will render, which they're not, we can actually see a model of the monument right here. It's an impressive one. It really is. Probably one of the neater ones out there. And if I move through here, I'm trying to find some of the more interesting pictures to show y'all. Let's see. Right here. This is probably one of the better ones. Man, that is one hell of a monument right there, especially to such an important battle, because while Waterloo's remembered as the battle that finally defeated Napoleon, it was really Leipzig that defeated Napoleon. Waterloo was the sequel to the most popular war of the time, but it wasn't really the war that it's made out to be. Leipzig was the war that Leipzig was the battle that really defeated Napoleon. Or I guess you could really say his march into Russia was what would really defeat him, and Leipzig was the final part of that terrible saga, but still, Leipzig was where he was actually defeated decisively in battle, and he retreated to France, hardly with any of his army left. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and also allowing us to take a look at that really cool monument. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
Up next, we have a $15 super chat from Joseph M. Sika this time. He says, I would love to take you guys to Santarpia's if you guys ever come to Boston. You only give is 8.5. The only 10 pizza I had was in Italy. I would love to come to anywhere and try the pizza.
And I thank you so much for the support. I would say avoid Alabama's pizza, because we only have pizza chains and they're not that good. You know, like I've had better. So I know that Alabama isn't the best in terms of pizza. So I would say not to try it down here. Try it in Chicago or New York. Don't try it in Boston. Well, we'll try it in Boston. That's where you're from. But I wouldn't try it in Alabama or California. But anyways, I would love to come up there and try that out. Maybe one day I can. Hopefully it would be possible, because that would actually be pretty neat to try. And also it'd be neat to see Boston. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. And maybe, you know, what's interesting is that maybe one day I could go to Italy and try out food there. I've actually seen some really interesting food come out of Italy. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and next up, we have a $2 super chat from Luna Rain Wolf, who says, the Pack Rat's here, and take a question from the chat.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Pack Rat, and we will take a question from the live chat. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And the question goes to, let's see, it goes to Willow Wisp, who says, Enforcer, how long before the entire Russian Federation turns on Russia?
That's really hard to say. Sometimes I don't really think it will turn, because we've seen that war support, according to Radio Free Europe, and the polling they've been able to pull off in Russia, actually shows that war support has increased. So I don't think they'll be turning against the Russian government until the very end, when they're defeated. And then we may see that the blame is thrown on Putin, and then he gets overthrown, and the government has a little bit of a switch. So I hope that answers the question fairly well, based off of what we're seeing. But considering what we've been hearing from non-biased third-party sources that have been getting into Russia, it seems as though the idea of a coup happening against Putin is becoming more and more unlikely as the war keeps going. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
Right. And let's see here. That was our last super chat. So, with that being said, we're moving on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have our Morse code decoders, Mark Hodges, CFA, WF2U, and BME, who said the Morse code message reads, "The Russians are attempting to encircle Bakhmut. Hopefully Ukraine can stop this, and Slava Ukraine."
You are correct. The Russians are attempting to encircle Bakhmut, and hopefully the Ukrainians can stop it. If they can strengthen the flanks around the city to the north and the south and on the chicken tender, they will probably be able to hold quite well. Let me actually get this map up to the present day. Right there. If they can hold the chicken tender and they can also stop the Russians of the south, they will probably be able to hold it and once again defeat the Russians in the second battle of Bakhmut. So I would say... for some reason I'm thinking that's a question, but I thank you so much for decoding the Morse code message, and thank you to all of y'all who continuously do that day in, day out, night after night, day after day. It's impressive to think y'all been doing that for so long. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope I addressed the comment fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And let's see here. Moving on to our first question, we have one from Hans von Klingser, who says, "Do you think Ukraine is still obligated to honor the Sevastopol lease considering current events, or has Russia violated the terms?"
Russia has violated the terms. The lease was null once Sevastopol was annexed by Russia, so I would say that they shouldn't have to honor that whatsoever. And once they retake Crimea, Russia immediately gets the boot, considering that it's a hostile country they're at war with. And so with that, I hope that answers the question. We are on to the next one.
And the next one, excuse me. The next one goes to Quantum Fighter, who says, "Morning from Malmo, Sweden. Do you think the tens of thousands of orcs are going to take Bakhmut? Looking forward to that great show."
And thank you so much once again for the question. And also, Malmo, Sweden. You wouldn't believe it, but Copenhagen and Malmo are actually connected by a bridge. So let's take a look at Malmo, since it's right by Copenhagen. I'm expecting the same level of quality, and if I don't see it, dagnabbit, I'm going to hold it against you. Those actually look like the dorms at the university we go to, man. I was thinking that. I was like,
yeah, it does.
Looks just like it.
I was distracted over here. I saw this person put in a $2 Canadian. Say, "Glad you're finally admitting Ukraine is losing." LOL. We haven't said that.
We haven't said that. Interesting.
So guess what's got to happen? Uh-oh.
Oh no. Yeah. Why in the world would you throw in $2 to say that, knowing that you would get banned? I mean, like, all you're doing is
exactly.
Like in thinking logically on his end, all you're doing is helping us to keep covering the news, so that way we can keep saying that Ukraine will eventually win. So I don't even get the point of sending in $2 to be negative, but. Hey, you're keeping us running, so regardless whether you agree with us or not, thanks for the support. But Malmo looks pretty nice. For some reason, it looks kind of industrial. Also, I like that building, though. That's a nice little building. But pretty neat. Also, you still see the cobbles in the road. And also, Dave Oz said, "LOL, he paid money to be a troll." I've never seen that before. I've never seen anyone pay... Well, actually, we have... pay hardcore money to be a troll. We actually had a troll before. It was a very subversive troll. Not going to get into the exact details, but they...
I know.
Yeah, but I'll give enough so that way everyone can follow the story. He kept on sending us stories about his relatives, and then one day he put the N-word in one of the super chats. And we didn't read it off on stream, but we read off the super chat. We just didn't read off that word. And so he kept on sending in super chats with that specific word in it and trying to force us to say it on stream. And, the whole intent behind that was to eventually have us say the word and force us to say it for him. So that way, I guess they could report the channel for saying that. And we went through a million times explaining, we can't say that. That's against YouTube community guidelines. We would be banned. Thank you for your support, but we can't do that because we wouldn't be around anymore. And, he just was like, you got to say it, And actually, someone came through the other day and was like, they banned this guy for nothing. And we banned him because he started getting violent over us not saying that word for some reason or another. That was really weird to me. Anyways, we have had trolls in here before that have supported us to try and get to some point. Also, we did have that one, Matthew, where they also, you know, got you with the nick, you know?
Yeah, they did get me good on that one.
Like, we've been had a couple of times by people who paid to be trolls, which is pretty funny. But anyways, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Joseph M. Sika, once again, who says, I live in Quincy, Massachusetts. Let's see. Oh, Joseph, I wish you hadn't put that in your super chat
Yeah,
because that could dox you. I feel really scared for you, honestly, for putting that in there. Hopefully that's not too close to your house, but he says, it was my grandmother's house. Elvira, pronounced Irvira. Don't mess it up or she'll kill us. Look it up.
Oh crap! Man, I really want to remove what's in it. You know, like remove the chat. You know, not do anything else but remove it because that actually can dox you, Joseph, and I don't want you to get doxed. So if you want to retract it, you can. I would highly recommend that you do, because that may be giving out enough information that people can pinpoint exactly where you are. But moving on down into the town, that is pretty cool to hear. I'm not going to show the exact house on stream because, you know, we might be getting really close to your house, but I thank you so much once again for the support. And also, let's look at Quincy since you're from here. I saw that.
But Joseph is a U.S. Marine, by the way. He just said that in the live chat. So you think I'm scared?
Oh,
no, he's not. He's not scared at all.
1 second. I gotta plug it up. It's dead.
Joseph, you don't want the whole a whole basket of crazies coming to your house, man.
1 second.
Oh, it's okay. I'm filling in for you. Of course, you're gonna keep on going. Yes.
All right. So
I'll hear myself too.
So, oh, you can?
Yes.
Like you can hear through my mic.
Let's see. I can't hear myself now. It fixed itself.
All right. So let's take a look. Since he's a Marine and not scared, we will take a look at it. So, let's see. 78 Springfield Street. 78 Springfield Street. Now, I got to tell you, man, it's still really weird for me to do this because it's just, you know, this could end up being bad, but we will look at it. Well, actually, we can't look at it, but we do have a picture here. It's a place that's close. Oh, and these are like Victorian era houses, like with the design and all. I would suppose that one was probably built in the 20s. But it's pretty cool. It's on like a reservation. The Quincy Quarries Reservation. Let's see. A lot of graffiti. Why? I'm not a big fan of graffiti. But you know, people do what they do. But still, pretty interesting. There's some graffiti on some rocks near where I live. I've seen it before, driving by it. But I don't even know how some of these people are getting down here to paint on this stuff. Like, it gotta be like Spider-Man or something hanging off a rock wall, you know, just painting. But anyways, I do thank you for the support, and I also thank you for letting us take a look at this, and hopefully we don't get you doxxed. But that was still pretty interesting. Also really neat to know that you're in southern Boston. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Avari Mandubratis once again, who says, I propose you add the Morse code readers to the second question segment after the polls by default so it gets covered during the news.
And I thank you so much for the support, Avari, and I think we should start doing that going forward because I hate for the Morse code decoders to have to wait until we get all the way to the live chats to have it read off, because they do put a decent amount of effort and some pretty cool skill to be able to get the Morse code message out of the beeps, the dots and dashes. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're going to be answering live chat questions for the next 5 minutes, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. And so with that, on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from OTubes, who says, I read that Russia is trying scare tactics to make Belarus help in the war. Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that, and I wouldn't really put too much concern into it, because it's been 9 months of stories like that coming out from, you know, whatever the Russians are supposedly doing to the Belarusians, and they haven't joined the war yet. And due to the internal fragility of Belarus, they probably would never be able to pull off a successful operation in the war at all. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Jose Diaz, who says, Enforcer, do you know where Patrick Lancaster is hiding?
I have no idea. Actually, let's pull up his YouTube channel. I'm going to pull it up on the second screen. So let me go to the YouTube.
That man's like the penguin. He's always lurking around somewhere.
Patrick Lancaster. He's got 530,000 subscribers. So let's see, the last I see, he is on the other side of the Dnipro River just 13 hours ago, pointing towards Kherson. So, interesting. It also looks like he's getting into the paying the bots to watch his videos shtick, because his views have gone up significantly over like the past 2 weeks. He went from getting like 50,000 views a video to now he's getting like 300,000. And you know that guy's shadow banned. You know, if anyone's shadow banned, it's him. Hello?
Yes.
I thought you were going to add to that, but you know, that's also something pretty interesting and a pretty easy way to see if people are actually being promoted on YouTube or not. Just in case y'all were wondering, just type in something like Ukraine war and see what the top video results are, and if the channel doesn't pop up in the top results, either it's not big enough. We are, believe it or not big enough to show up in the top results of YouTube, although some other channels do that are smaller than us, which is kind of weird. And then, you know, some don't at all. I mean, like, you can literally pull up everything related to Ukraine, and then you have to type them in directly to find them, which is really interesting. But that kind of tells you if anyone's paying for views, is if they don't really pop up. But then again, that kind of applies to us. So, you know, and you look at us right now, we're kind of shadow banned. So anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also I see folks saying that the Belarusian foreign minister was poisoned, they said.
Oh, he was poisoned?
Apparently so. I don't know what he got. Novichok. Did he get sarin? What did he get?
Let's see. Maria Kolesnovka is in intense care. So apparently an opposition figure. Let's see. Top diplomat. He was buried. You see the funeral. Pretty solid picture. But, what the hell kind of... You know, I'm always interested how these news people survive with these kinds of ads. Like, how much do they pay to have these ads put on there? Like, look at that one. Like, it's straight up, you know what it is. Like, if you click on that, you know what it is. I don't know why in the world they get advertisers like that. And also, like, stupid one. Like, let's go down here for a second again. Hottest fans in World Cup history. That girl's like 16. Like, that's just weird. Like, why in the world is the Associated Press allowing ads like that on their stuff? Like, not leaves us with no words, taking off makeup. And look at this one. What the hell is that supposed to be? A crackhead behind Waffle House? Like, good lord. Like, I don't know what's up with the ads. Also, I feel sorry for anyone who ends up with their pictures like this, probably used without their permission. Because you know that's got to be rough. Anyways, we're going to get off Associated Press, who's got a vile ad section, and we're going to get back to that, because that's actually pretty interesting, and I never heard about that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Right, and it looks like we have 4 more Super Chats to go. So, up next, we have another $10 Super Chat from Joseph M. Sika, who says, fun fact, they filled in the Quincy quarries from all the earth that came out of the Big Dig in Boston. I was up there in the 80s and 90s and was jumping the quarries and skating the rinks way B.
And
back in the day. Totoro.
And thank you so much once again for the support. And Totoro. And also, that is really cool to hear that they actually filled it back in. We actually have a big marble pit in Sylacauga in Alabama that they won't fill in because it, I guess you could say, it kind of has a little bit of history. It's this one right here. It's the Gantz Quarry pit. It's just filled with water now, and the water's toxic, so that's why it's got that weird blue color. But still, that's really interesting here that they actually filled those in. And I was wondering, I was like, it's called a quarry reservation, but where are the quarries? But with that, I thank you so much once again for support and sharing that with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And Joseph continues his message and says, "You guys, sorry, I can't be here every night. So many things I want to tell you. So that spot at the Quincy Quarries, I can walk there. It overlooks all of Boston in 10 minutes.
And thank you so much once again for support. And that is pretty cool to hear. And I think that would be really neat to go and look at that quarry, considering that you can see all of Boston from the quarry hill. Let's see, where is that hill? I think it's probably that one, if I had to guess. But still, that is really cool. And it looks like the quarry would have been in here, and they filled it back in, and they left some of it still there. That's just really cool. Also, they got baseball fields, because everyone in the Northeast loves baseball. Well, I don't know why it's like Russian Northeastern, like Russian New Englander. But with that, thank you so much once again for support and sharing that with us. And I hope you enjoy that view, because I bet a lot of people would have to pay top dollar to get the kind of view around Boston. So with that, we are on to the next one. And also, there's Salem. You know, the place that they hung witches. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $6 super chat from Quincy Martinez, who says, "Good morning. I love the channel and greetings from Haarlem, the Netherlands. I've been following you since August."
And thank you so much for the support, and also being one of our viewers from Haarlem. I would feel very concerned if you were from Haarlem in the United States, but considering you're from Haarlem in the Netherlands, I think you're pretty okay. Now I'm going to unplug my headset, and hopefully it has enough juice to get through the rest of the stream. But that is pretty cool. I think we've been in Haarlem before, but let's drop down again just to double check. Wow, this is nice. That is posh. Now, look at that. Also, there's like a woman in the window here. Women! Run away! Anyways, let's see. Carnival. Yeah. But what a nice place. And there's the canal. So if you ever get pissed off, you know, because European cars, and I'm just kidding, so no one get, you know, extremely angry, but European cars are quite small. Like, honestly, I feel like if your friends, like pissed you off and you lived in Haarlem, you could just go over to the side of this car, pick it up, and throw it in the canal. Like, they look that small. But still, I thank you so much once again for the support. Also, Haarlem is a beautiful place. All jokes aside about the cars on the canal, it's a beautiful place. Really like it. And also, what was the question in that one again? Also, wait a minute, I think you just said you've been watching for a while, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and watching us for so long. It means a lot that a lot of people do enjoy this channel, and I hope that y'all share it around with everyone around, and make sure to remind others that you may talk to that are subscribers or watching that our streams are still running and we are putting up videos, and to make sure to watch them. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and for our last one of the night, we have a $2 super chat from Soul, who says, "You guys hungry? Check out Pizzeria Yelma in Yelma in Budoni."
How's that spelled?
It's spelled Gialma, and then, you know, in Budoni. As a separate two words, in Budoni.
And how do you spell those?
N is I-N, and then Budoni is B-U-D-O-N-I.
B-U-D-O-N-I. So, I think that's it. Is it Gialma?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. So, let's take a look at this thing. So, it's actually in Italy. I don't know what the... That looks pretty good. That's like a meat lover's pizza, man. That's like a real meat lover's. And they got a pepperoni here with fries on top of it. Got a vegetable pizza.
Ooh. Is that... Wait a minute. Are they sitting in a chair? Oh, that's a pillow. I was about to say.
I was about to say, man. I was like, what that... Like, anyways, let's move on from that. Corona. Let's see here. Moving on. Accordion. I play accordion, actually. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, what else? That one looks like... I hate to say this one. This one looks like it's got mold on it. I know those are probably like olives or something, but I have seen a pizza that had mold on it before, and it looked like that. But I would still try it, though. I bet it's probably pretty good. Considering it's using, like, real olives and all. That one looks pretty good, although the lighting isn't doing it a lot of help. onions. The pepperonis are really neat. Those kind of remind me of Costco pepperonis, like with their size and like the thickness. This guy is drinking some Perdera wine with his pizza. Classy. I like that. And also...
Uh-oh, lag.
Oh, oh. No, it looks like we're not even pulling up the next picture. Also,
we're back.
Also, Magic Sky Girl, I've seen you've been talking about not being able to send in the super chat all night. It's totally fine. I'm just happy to have you here. But usually, whenever I have a problem donating to a fundraiser, I like refresh or I click off the video and then get back on. That usually fixes the problem for me. But honestly, it's fine. I wouldn't worry about it. Anyways, that's a nice looking pizza place. Also, what town is this in? Like, where is this? Oh, it's in Sardinia! It is in Italy. That is in Italy. It's not the Italian peninsula, but it is in Italy. But let's take a look at the actual town, because I'm guessing this is probably where you're from if you're talking about a specific pizzeria. And
Also, Magic Sky Girl, just tag me and send me what you want him to read, and we'll go ahead and just read it off.
Yeah, because you've been here forever, and it's totally fine. We'll address whatever comment you want. Free of charge. You don't have to send in a super chat to get it answered. But let's see here. It's a nice town, actually. It's not that bad. Also, that is an interesting frog. But anyways, with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and allowing us to take a look at that pizzeria on Sardinia. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and looks like Joseph M. Sika put in a $50 for Magic Sky Girl, so that's pretty crazy. Thank you, Joseph.
Oh, you didn't have to do that, Joseph. We were going to answer the question with or without the support, but we do thank you so much for it. It helps us to keep running. And man, that was just too kind, honestly. Like, I don't even know how to react to that, but I got to thank you so much, Joseph, for helping us out, and thank you so much for putting that in for Magic Sky Girl. And real quick, if Magic Sky Girl will throw in the question or the comment she wants answered, we will make sure to answer it. So let's see if we can have that pop up here.
And while she's typing that, we actually have one more from Joseph M. Sika. He puts in a $10 donation. And Joseph, thank you very much for the very generous support tonight. Joseph says, look up Quincy Quarries overlooks Boston. You'll see the pics, and I agree with you. I hate the graffiti. Do it in your own backyard. I would love to send you guys on Snap or email or something. Love your cha.
And thank you so much once again for the support. And we did see that picture from Quincy's Quarry where you could see Boston right here. And I gotta agree, I'm not a big fan of graffiti. I see some people saying that's art, and some of it is, but some of it isn't. And you know, and also I think that graffiti should be in specific places. You know, like all over these rocks. Like, I think it would look better as bare rock in this area. If it was in a city, it would be fine, I guess, you know, because cities are kind of known for that stuff. But, you know, the quarry, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not really my thing. It's not really jiving with me. But it still looks beautiful. Look at that view. Like, that is literally Boston. Like, you see it all the way from here.
That is nice.
You see it all the way from here, Matthew, from Quincy's Quarry. But still, really cool to see. And also, there's someone on the rocky outcrop looking over the town, wondering who
that's your crazy cousin from Boston.
He's wondering, who am I gonna be? Am I gonna be a prohibitionist bootlegging salesperson, or am I gonna be a TikToker? And he becomes a TikToker because he's got to sit there and make the 10 cents ad revenue off of 2 million views on TikTok, while the Chinese people who own the thing are making $1 million off of that video. Anyways, that is actually really cool. And also, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And thank you so much for covering Magic Sky Girl. You didn't even have to, but still, I thank you so much for it nonetheless, because it helps us out a great deal in keeping this thing alive and keeping the channel running. And so with that, we are going to address, I think Magic Sky Girl sent one in, did she?
She said something about the special sauce on the spicy pizza costing $150.
Let's see. $150? Jesus, I gotta tell you, that is expensive. And sauce on spicy pizza, that is just insane. I've never heard of a special sauce costing $150, but if there was one out there that cost that much, my head would explode. I wouldn't be able to afford pizza. I would just literally starve to death. But I think you ought to send Putin one because that would be hilarious as hell. I don't think it'd be worth the expenditure on your end. I think we would have to do a channel-wide fundraiser for that. But thank you so much once again, Manchester Sky Girl, for just being here tonight. You don't have to, like, I want everyone to know this because this is something I'm truly sincere about. You do not have to send in a super chat for us to be thankful that y'all are here. I'm thankful that all of y'all are here, whether y'all send in a super chat, whether y'all don't, whether y'all just here or not. Well, of course, if y'all are not here, I miss y'all. I don't like that. But if y'all are here, I love y'all just being here. I love y'all commenting in the live chat, interacting with us. Usually some pretty good jokes are thrown around, and it's fun. And so I just thank y'all for being here. And Magic Sky Girl, don't worry about sending in a super chat. I know you send in one pretty much every time you're here, but it's fine. I wouldn't worry about it. And so with that...
Also, Magic Sky Girl wanted you to read off that chat in the Mike Tyson voice.
Oh, okay. Let me go back up to it. I'm so sick of this special sauce on the spicy pizza that costs $150. I'm going to send Putin a specialty pizza that is soaked in super spicy magic mushrooms that turn him into a senseless suffering fool because he's really just a rat piece of shit, man. He's just a rat piece of shit. Whoa, hey, Mike, calm down. Not if you, man. You're just a rat piece of shit. I got to meet the mayor. Nobody can stop that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you so much once again, Magic Sky Girl. I hope you enjoyed that. And now I understand why there were so many S's in that, because you wanted me to read it off like Mike Tyson. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed it so much because it's fun for me to do the voices. Of course, I get a lot of bad rap for Mike Tyson because a lot of people say that he sounds like he's on the assault bus, and I can't help that. You ought to know the pain I go through. It's like busting your kid's balls with a hammer. And so, I'm sorry about that one. That one was probably a little bit too PG, but that's what Mike Tyson said. That's his actual words. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. It looks like a lot of people actually like that. And I think we might start bringing back voices, or maybe even do videos where I do voices. I think that would be fun. Maybe I'll do one tomorrow. Maybe I'll do like a Sam Elliott voice on a video, just for the fun of it. If we're shadow banned, might as well just enjoy it. We're all kind of now in our own little community, probably not expanding out into much of anyone, because, believe it or not, I'll let y'all know this. This is interesting. We've gotten 7 subscribers today, total. And that's what's happened. We went from, 200 subscribers a day, or 60 subscribers a day. We're now down to getting either 7, or every once in a while we lose like 3 net over the whole day. So, might as well just have fun with it. If the channel is going to be shadow banned, might as well just do what we do. But I thank you so much once again. And with that, we actually have super chats that are still rolling in. So let's get to the next one.
All right. I think this will have to be the final 3 of the night because it looks like we're going to start running into overtime. So up next, we have a $10 super chat. We actually have 2 more from Joseph M. Sika. The first one says, same. I like all natural. I watch animals for a living. Since my back surgery, so I bring the dogs up there all the time.
And thank you so much once again for the support. And that is actually pretty cool to hear too. Bird watching is something that I've always been interested in doing. I feel like, there's a little bit of a stigma to that, especially for someone my age because, I'm like 20. So no one really thinks that would be normal to go bird watching, but I love to watch birds whenever I just get to. They're freaking neat, and you watch all kinds of animals, so I'm sure there's a whole bunch of neat stuff out there that Corey, but I really like watching birds, especially my favorite one is actually the American kestrel, if y'all have ever seen it. It's one of the smallest birds of prey in the United States. It's a beautiful little bird. It's about the size of a pigeon. Look at that little thing. Isn't it cute? I love that thing.
Wow. I like that bird.
Yeah, I like that bird. And also, let's see if I can find some other pictures. Here's a lady holding one. You can see the size of the kestrel right there. They're so small, but they're literally they're a falcon. They're a small falcon. And also you can see the I guess you could say the tail feathers. And they look like turkey tail feathers. I mean, I just love this bird right here. I really like to find them. They're very rare here in Alabama. I've only seen 2 of them. But I love them so much. They're just so cool. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Joseph M. Sika. And I hope I was able to throw in some pretty good commentary. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Joseph M. Sika. Once again, he says, you guys are the best. Keep up the positivity. So this is to answer A in the live chat. And thank you, Joseph, once again. And thank you for the kind words, too. And to sponsor that live chat question, it's going to go to, let's see here, who says, could it be a trap to make advance Russians on flat ground?
It could be a well, yeah, I don't think Bakhmut is a trap in that way because the Ukrainians want to hold it. But at the same time, I think they would be fine with actually pulling back out of the town and defending the ridges around it. Because then they get to fire down onto the Russians, which is a lot easier, and you can see them for a longer distance. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the final one of the night goes to Sly Walker, who puts in a $7 donation and says, much love from Aussie land. I've been watching you guys from the start, and thank you. Would you mind visiting my hometown of Adelaide, North Terrace specifically?
And I would be totally fine with doing that. So let's see here. North Terrace, Adelaide. Probably on the coast, isn't it? Probably on the coast. Yeah. Probably on the coastline. Probably on the coastline, Batman. I don't know why I'm doing like a cheap Joker voice, but let me try and find... Hey, Batman. Hey, Matthew. Guess what I found? Monkey Mia. I don't know why there's a town called Monkey Mia. Like, that's an interesting name. Anyways, let me move on. Let me find Adelaide. Adelaide. I remember that some people, when I did that a while ago, were like, wow, that's a perfect, I forgot what it was. Who's the guy who did Batman, who's known for the best, man? Do you like the actual Batman movie? It's not Joaquin Phoenix. It's the other guy who overdosed.
Tom Hanks.
No, what the hell? Tom Hanks never was the Joker. It was that guy who overdosed before his movie came out.
Ben Affleck.
No.
He was Batman at one point.
No, he wasn't. That's impossible.
Ben Affleck? Yeah, he was Batman at one point.
No, I'm talking about the Joker.
Oh, that's that that somewhat crazy guy that puts on that act when he's in interviews.
No.
It's
no, not Joaquin Phoenix. It's that other guy. It's that guy who would sit there. You want to see a magic trick, and I'm gonna make the pencil disappear, and then Heath Ledger. That's the guy. I was about to pull him up. Someone last time he did that voice, everyone was like, wow, that's a great Heath Ledger. I don't know if it is. I never really heard the guy talk a lot. But let's take a look at the city of Adelaide. Oh, surprisingly incredibly nice. For some reason, I always expect the fringes of Australia to look like the frontier still, because it's remote. This isn't really the frontier, though. This is South Australia. What the hell am I even talking about? That's like the least frontier you can get in all of Australia. But anyways, it's a nice town. Let's go down Flinders Street. The streets are clean. The buildings are nice. Nice place, I gotta say, all around. Man, I'm really actually thoroughly impressed. I like your town, man. And also, thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you so much for enjoying this channel. It means a lot to us that a lot of people enjoy this channel and want to keep on watching and want to help us to support this channel and want to talk to us, because it's always cool to know that people just enjoy what we do. And so I got to thank you so much once again, and I hope you enjoyed us taking a look at this very nice city of Adelaide in South Australia. And so with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy this stream, and I hope y'all did, please make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe as well. Subscribing helps us out a lot. It helps us to fight the shadow ban that we've currently got going on YouTube, and it helps us to keep this channel growing. Maybe eventually YouTube will lift a shadow ban, seeing that it hasn't really slowed down this channel much at all, or maybe we can just power through it. But still, once again, I thank you all so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure covering the news with all of y'all tonight, and I will see y'all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. Thank you all once again, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Good night, take care, and good luck.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла сонці усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що